are. Hi, everybody. It is game day, Extra Life 2021. Joining me is the owner of the horniest chat on Twitch, with consent, Tyr, and we're just going to sit and talk about shit. Hey, Mina.
Mina!
So, how's the day been? How's the streaming been?
Good. Right now we are running through, and for the past few months we've been running through Yakuza series and Final Fantasy series. So, I enjoy, this is probably two of my, Final Fantasy is my number one favorite series, and Yakuza is definitely my top 5. So we've really been enjoying those. It's just been good. It's been good lately. I stream, I guess we can get back into like why we started streaming and stuff at some point here. Yeah. When I stream, I'm really just there to, one, it's an escape for me. It's a way for me to hang out with people that I care about, and very, very dear friends to me at this point. Practically family. They are family to me. So it's good for me, especially since the past 3 weeks have been kind of nuts between work and just personal life stuff, just going kind of haywire. So today was really good for me because my back actually wasn't killing me, so it was nice to be able to like sit not in pain, and just to enjoy my time with the friends. So streaming's been going awesome. We have a good time. It's a little crazy though, sometimes. a little chaotic.
Well, I mean, that goes without saying. Everything's chaotic right now, right? So you got to find your happiness where you can. And I mean, since you brought it up, let's talk about it. Why did you start streaming?
Yeah. All right. So
hi,
I started. Hunter, what's up? I started streaming. So I've been on the platform now. It's now been about 19 months. It was February of last year. So I don't want to do time math. I'm not good at it. So a little, year and a half and change. And I think when I started streaming, I'm a huge League of Legends fan. So I was like, all right, well, I play League. There's a lot of really popular League streamers, so like I could just play League, and we'll kind of see what happens. Like I didn't really have a goal in mind, I guess. It's like I'll play video games and people can come watch and chat. And it probably was that way for a good 2 or 3 months, right? Like there wasn't really a whole lot of purpose. I happen to be the COO of what's called Equinox Gaming, EQX. I know many people are familiar with it in some of the communities that we share. And I met those folks, so people like Darling and Ducky, and people like Anako It's Jess, Sirdeek, and a few others who have kind of come and gone along the way in a Discord. And we were just streamers, just kind of bullshitting, and we ended up in like leadership positions in this particular Discord. And so we're like, all right, well, we're leaders, we're mods or whatever it is, and so we started coming forward and saying, hey, we've got these ideas.
Kids, man, kids. This is a top-notch quality production.
It's a serious business, guys.
It's the background crew, okay.
It's hard to find good help.
It really is.
So we had some really great ideas for how we wanted to improve the Discord and kind of run this community, and the person running the Discord really didn't like the ideas, and some of the other folks that he had around for a while, they didn't like those ideas either. So they ended up kind of like kicking us to the curb, and at that point we decided, like, all right, we've got some ideas. We kind of have ideas of what we want to do as a team. Right. We started what was the previous iteration, I guess, of Equinox Gaming, which was called the We Folk. And we were just like the little people, right? Like we were the folks that were for the common man. We were gonna, make things different, have a Discord that wasn't like a frat house, and we were gonna make sure everybody was promoted and that everybody had an equal shot. And that's what we started off with. And then we were like, all right, well, we like content creation. We like esports. We're all pretty professional. We have a passion for this. Let's try to do something a little more business oriented, like with a little more plan behind it. And so we started EQX, and we started off with content creation, and we're kind of working through that, and then we'll, branch off into esports at some point, because we tried esports at first, and it takes a lot of work to do the whole esports thing, and we learned very quickly, even just running tournaments and stuff, it can be a shit show. So along that way, we're running this thing called Equinox Gaming. We're building a community, and then I want to say I kind of found myself, and as cheesy as that sounds, I kind of figured out like this was a space, like streaming became a place for me to enjoy myself, like really escape. Because video games had always been an escape, but it became a place where like I could escape and I could have everybody come hang out with me.
Yeah.
And they also could find comfort and friendship in the same place, right? And so that became like my purpose, was like, all right, I'm gonna be me, which just happens to be somebody who's kind of a little bit over the top sometimes with being lewd, or I wouldn't say overtly sexual, but very, very sexually oriented, and I encourage people to be the same way. But we also have conversations about paganism, because I'm a Norse pagan, and there are many others who share similar beliefs in the channel. Today we were having conversations around the medical, the possible medical, if any, reasons for circumcision. Like there was just like, these are the kind of topics that we have that are just an open forum, and if people come with a true curiosity or genuine question or an understanding for something, or want to have an understanding for something, we'll have that conversation, and we're not afraid to shy away from it, as long as it's not derogatory or bigoted or something that's disrespectful. So it's turned into that, and I've met amazing people, and that's just kind of continue to be my goal, is like, how can we continue to grow that type of community, which also somehow feeds into like EQX, because we really want to be a place that's about everybody. It's not just about just not Tyr's Discord, where everybody needs to go to every stream that Tyr has, and you need to support him, and you need to tweet him, and you need to host him, and you need to make sure you give him X number of subs. Like I think you and I have been in communities like that before.
Yes.
And there's still communities out there like that now. It's not about that. It's really about a place where people can feel safe and secure, and be themselves, and respect each other. And it's just about how can we perpetuate that now going forward. And people talk about partner, and they talk about all these other goals and stuff. It's like, it is what it is. That's not what, if that happens along the way, cool, whatever. But my bigger goal is how can I help people, man? That's really important to me. Like, how can I make your day a little bit better? If it even is you come in and you use some of my commands and it makes you laugh, you come in, you do the cowboy scream, or you come in and you're doing vibe cat, or you want to see a spicy video command, cool. That's all it is. It's just, how can I make your day a little bit brighter?
Well, it's that's sort of how things have come together, and how a lot of the communities that we regularly bump into each other in and whatnot, and a lot of the satellite communities around each other's channels, is we're all trying to provide that island in the storm, because especially in the last couple of years where the world has gone to shit, we want to just have a place where people can feel comfortable being themselves, but also we can help entertain or at times educate. So I completely understand that. With me, streaming it partly became my re-education on how to socialize. Okay. Because for many years I was quite antisocial due to depression and, the whole litany of things. So being on camera and interacting with chat forced me how to relearn how to communicate and talk to people, especially strangers. Because at first, every time somebody comes into your channel, they're a stranger. And so you gotta, present yourself and interact with them and get to meet them. And that actually helped apply to the real world, out in work, and, getting back out as the world starts to slowly reopen. How to talk to people again. So, it's one of those things, because before I was very ambivalent to anybody around me who wasn't either immediate family or friends that I've known for 10, 20 years. So Twitch became my vehicle to learn how to socialize.
Yeah, it's interesting that I'm glad you brought that up, because it's very similar to me. I work in a professional setting, and I've been in like a corporate job before, and I've been in kind of up and down the corporate ladder. And I've usually been in management, but something that I've always struggled with is I do have terrible social anxiety. And it's weird. I mean, it's not weird. I say it's weird, but actually other people probably just experience the same thing, and we've never really vocalized it. But like, I have a social battery, right? Like as an introvert, and it gets, it only can go so far. But there are days where I just don't want to be involved, and I don't want to work with people. But somehow when I get on, like when I stream, it's never like that. I mean, yes, it's draining. Yes, it takes energy. Not draining in like a bad sense, but just like, when you have a long stream, you're like, whew, that was, exhausting in a sense. But it also has forced me to become, like you said, a little more social, to be able to hold those conversations and talk to people, to find ways to get to know them, and don't want to say pull information out of them, but to engage them in a way that like it generates conversation.
Yeah, like a natural, organic way.
Right. And so that translates really well for me into the real world, because there are a lot of times in my job where I've got to do the same thing, right? And you know, talking in social settings or giving an orientation are some of the things that I have to do. Sometimes I have to present for like senior leadership and stuff like that. So in a way, like Twitch also was a way for me to like force myself into those scenarios where, you know, maybe I do have 10 or 15 people who I'm talking to and I don't know who they are, or they're brand new to me. And how do I get past the anxious part of that and the nervous part of that? Even if it is just an interaction through a screen, it's just as important. And hell, not in today's environment, like there are lots of people who have never met their boss in person. They're just, you know, they're just a face on the screen, or that's the most common way that they interact. So it's funny how that's turned out, but in a similar way, it's helped me force myself to grow as well in those social interactions.
No, absolutely. And like, I think as far as streaming goes, the reason why it's more comfortable, hey Beebs, welcome in. And again, thank you for the follow, Play to Remember. With Twitch and with streaming, we have the control where we can just stop the conversation if we get overwhelmed socially. Like we have that choice where we can just go, okay, it's been great, everybody. I'm done. I gotta go. And then we can, you know, turn it off and we can walk away, or we can take a break and, you know, get up, stretch, whatever it needs to be. We control that environment insofar as we can leave it or be in it as long as we choose to.
Yeah, I think it's important too. So like the journey on Twitch has also helped me understand people better, right? So like I've always been the type of person who holds myself to a very, very high standard. So like in a situation where maybe others might tap out, or like I would say to others like, hey, you should tap out on this, like your social battery is dry or whatever. I would force myself to keep going to finish the interaction. So I think having the chance to be exposed to more people, especially there's so many amazing people who I've met that you know, who have ADHD or social anxiety, or you know, other characteristics about them that I'm forced to learn and understand them more, and I think it's helped my empathy grow, because I can now be more empathetic to their plight, because I, you know, get to know them and they explain it to me. And whereas as in the past I might have been like, oh, you know, don't, just keep going, right? Like just keep pushing on. Now I understand kind of their limitations and who they are, and it makes more sense for me to have those situations where like, hey, I'm tapping out, and I don't know, it's just helped me grow in that way as well.
Absolutely. Like everything that I've done on Twitch has been a very large learning experience, and things that I never knew I would learn have come out of it, especially when it comes to things like the skills you build up. Like my background is in writing, and I've been writing all kinds of things for years. I've, you know, been working on books. I've contributed to some books and projects, and then I've been doing game journalism for over 12 years now for different sites, a online magazine, and then my own site for the last 10 years.
Okay.
And writing, there was some interaction, like with, I've been on Twitter for like 12 years. So I've had that social component in that kind of space, but it was very easy.
Yeah.
Yes. Love you, Danny. Thank you for the resub. 14 months, you fucking maniac. That's like almost 2 Twitch babies. There goes my train of thought. This is the thing. With a neurodivergent ADHD person, we have multiple trains of thought running at the same time, and it doesn't take very much for the choo-choo to go off the rails. But oh, there it is. So, you know, interacting through text on social media is one thing, but then when you get in front of the camera, you've got the microphone on, and you know it's the world looking through the window at you. You know, you have to examine yourself, and what qualities do I have? You have to look at the positives and the negatives. Like, you got to learn how to be, you know, more empathetic to people and
absolutely
understand that people go through shit. And, you know, but at the same time, you have to realize, well, I go through shit too. How much do I share and how much should I share?
Yeah.
And finding that balance.
Sure.
And that's the biggest thing. And recognizing, like, I've learned more about myself in the last year than I think I've learned about other people.
Okay.
And that was one of the biggest benefits, because I realized I'm, at least marginally entertaining. And, there's lots of things to learn still, and all the skills that I had from previous employment and projects and just life all applied to streaming in ways that I didn't think they would.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, I've had to force myself to learn a lot of the technical stuff, kind of maybe similar to you, with streaming, whether it's, mildly editing, photos and videos and flyers, and how to run the streaming software, and just kind of understanding, things on computers and such that I probably wasn't forced to know before, which I think is cool, for sure. And then the other thing is too, like, a lot of my professional life has rolled over into EQX too, as we run this organization, is, whether it's management or how you talk to people, how to treat them. Because I've always been a leader who values, like a manager, leader, whatever, who values people. And unfortunately, that's not something you see a lot of nowadays in the workplace. So using, having that same empathy for the interactions that I have with people has really been helpful, just to understand people. And of course, run an organization too. But it's interesting how those skill sets overlap, and then just how much, like, I'm the type of person who always feels like there's always more to learn, there's always more to grow. I'm very hungry for knowledge, and I'll ask why a lot, very much like a 5-year-old would ask why 1,000 times, right? Like a child. Yeah. And it's not to be facetious or rude or a pain in the ass. It's really just because I really want to truly understand things. And it's just something that I've always felt. So, expanding that knowledge and then sharing that knowledge, right? Like, there's a lot of gatekeeping in fucking streaming, which is weird. And I don't understand that, because I think people, this happens in the workplace too, right? Like, there's somebody that has a knowledge base and they don't want to share it because they think that if they have that knowledge, like, I'm irreplaceable now, right? Mm-hmm. And so in streaming, it's very similar, because people will feel like, because I can do XYZ with, Trigger Fire or Leorin board or whatever it is, and if I don't share that knowledge with somebody else, well, I'm a better streamer than they are, because I have these qualities and these techniques or skill set, which is dumb. Mm-hmm. And so I'm somebody too who's like, if somebody's like, hey, how do you do this? I'm like, bet, let's show you. Or, how did you make that video command? Okay, do you have chatbot, or what are you using? Like, do you have Trigger Fire? Like, so, I'm legit, like, I don't care if I share my knowledge with you as a streamer and you are more successful or popular than I am. Cool. If that's my goal, then that just means I need to figure out how to up my game, right? But at the end of the day, it's, again, if it's about how I can help people and how I can also grow as a person, then I'm going to share that knowledge. I'm not going to gatekeep on it.
Well, that's one of the things. It's like, even if you're sharing knowledge, right, and somebody happens to take what you've taught them and they turned around and suddenly blew up. People, especially a lot of streamers, seem to be under that assumption that we're all battling for the same viewers, when there are, millions of people watching Twitch at any given time. We're not going to have the same audience. There might be some overlap. We have friends and whatnot who we make through, traveling through channels and networking and stuff. But there's going to be lots of people who come to our channels who may never go to somebody else's channel in our friend group or in our network, because there's simply no appeal to them. So being able to skill share just makes everybody's streams better, which is better for the audience overall. Right. Right. And every skill you learn streaming is transferable outside of streaming. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because I've also known streamers who have been like, oh, you took my viewers, or so, so they have some kind of idea that they have some kind of ownership over people in their chat, which is insane to me as well. But you make a valid point, right? Like, even if you and I play similar games or whatever, maybe they don't like how incredibly horny my chat gets. Maybe that's a little bit too much for them, and that's okay. We want them to have those places where they feel like we want them to enjoy themselves, because at the end of the day, Twitch really is just entertainment, right? Yeah. Now, does that entertainment also can provide other services like a safe space or comfort or those kinds of things, a sense of community? Absolutely. but people like what they like. So
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't give somebody shit for liking romance movies if I don't care for them, because if they enjoy it, that's their time, that's their prerogative. So it's interesting that this is like a thing that people do. It's just streamer dramas, something else. Something else. I don't know if we want to get on that one, but
like that. The nice thing is that I can talk about anything. There really are, other than a few very normal red lines when it comes to, the usual thing, discrimination, bigotry, things like that. But most topics I am open to discussing because they're valid and they're about things that are on top of mind, and unfortunately, especially for new streamers. And I have this conversation regularly with guests and elsewhere. Drama is one of those sadly unavoidable things with streaming, and sometimes you don't see it coming.
Oh yeah.
So it's about how you handle it that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've even bumped into similar people with some drama and some things. So, a lot of people in our sphere all know the story.
Sure.
And it's, I think I was fortunate to get into that mess early when I first started streaming seriously than later.
Right.
Because it would have probably been a lot messier, and I probably would have, rather than just quietly burning bridges, I would have just nuked several cities on my way through.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that drama is going to happen in your life, whether it's, real life streaming or just social media or just at work. There's going to be drama, and you have to prepare for it as best you can and learn, especially when it comes to people who choose drama and choose to be insulting and weaponize, especially when they weaponize relationships.
Sure.
Learning how to handle those occasions.
Yeah, because drama is just conflict, right? It's conflict in one sense or another. It's just a different form of it, where usually it's over the top, or it's exaggerated, or it gets blown out of proportion. So it's that conflict resolution skills. And I always encourage people, I'm like, look, if you have the ability to be neutral, I think that's the best way to be. And that's how I try to stay, is just like, all right, unless this really is completely insulting, or derogatory, or disrespectful, where I need to step in and say, hey, this is not okay. And I need to either protect, now EQX or members of my friends or my community, I guess, or family for that matter. I'm going to try to stay out of it. I'm not going to try to get involved. And if people try to pull me in, I'm going to be like, all right, I'm like an impartial third party. I need evidence on what's going on. I need to see this for myself. Because unfortunately, like we mentioned, I've been part of something where I was essentially gaslit from the back end, because I was just, believing what one person was saying, even though they were the common denominator, and even though they were the one always in the middle of something. And so I think it's important to trust your gut and kind of be logical about it too, because if you see the same person in the same ish situation 2 and 3 times, with 2 and 3 different people, it's probably them that is the issue. Yeah, so it's no different.
You have to learn to identify the common problems, because unfortunately we want to, well, I know you have, Danny, we want to choose to see the best of people, but all too often that blinds us to the evidence that's right in front of us.
That was me. I was like, all right, well, this is a different, I think I kind of had the reverse idea, it was a different person. All right, so this is a different person, right? Oh, this situation's a little bit different, right? And then this person's never been rude to me or bad to me. And so okay, you and I are good, but then all these other people are falling down. And so, I learned a lot from that. I as far as gaslighting and everything else that goes, even in just a friendly relationship. I know sometimes gaslighting is associated with romantic relationships, but just the fact that I was fed this information that had nothing to do, that was very, very doctored. It was a mess. So no, I've been much more on guard about that. And then also too, just I think maybe learning my own boundaries along the way too, because I typically am a little more passive in relationships when it comes to like friendships and stuff. I'm like, all right, well, it doesn't really involve me, and you know, if you're not trying to really bring me into it, then I'm not going to get involved. But being able to say to some people like, hey, like if you're going to be involved in this situation, I cannot be involved in this. I don't want to be associated with somebody who is constantly, derogatory or in the middle of drama. Mm-hmm. So, being able to draw that line for myself and say, hey, I need to be able to protect myself from future issues is important too. And I think people sometimes don't, even if they're indirectly involved in that way, they don't take the time to understand that they can make that decision. You can cut ties with somebody at any time if you need to.
Yeah.
If it's to protect yourself and your mental health, really, because it can be very stressful to be involved in those kinds of things.
Yeah, well, people need the confidence to be able to curate their own space. Like, only you can define what's allowed in your space and what isn't. But too many people don't have the confidence, because that's what it comes down to. Sure. It's a matter of being confident. We all want to be liked, and we worry that if we do remove somebody from our space for whatever reason, that everybody else isn't going to like us because of it.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that while it's nice to be liked, you have to be comfortable with yourself and comfortable in your own space for you to exist in it.
Yeah.
The moment it stops being comfortable is when there's a real problem.
Yeah.
And nobody else can help you with that.
Yeah, you got to be able to make those difficult decisions too, right? Like it's one of those things was like, would you rather be liked or would you rather be right? And sometimes those two things don't always align. Mm-hmm. Right? Would you rather do the right thing and separate yourself from somebody who's involved in drama or lying or whatever it is, at the expense of that friendship? And there are ways to probably separate yourself in the least traumatic way. Now, obviously, any relationship with two people, you can only control yourself and the way that you react and the things that you say. You can't control what they do at all. And I learned that the hard way romantically. But same with friendships, right? It's no different with a friendship, with any kind of professional relationship. If you say, hey, I need my space. I'm gonna need to distance myself from you because of XYZ. That person could explode, right? And then it could become a huge, bigger issue. All you can control is that how you communicate that and then how you respond. So, there's only so much you can do at the end of the day. But to your point, you need to be able to have the confidence in yourself and say, this is not for me. I'm not comfortable with this. And despite our relationship or history, I've got to move on.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a good way to segue into the next part, which would be, now that we've established, why you started streaming, what forms your streamer identity now?
Yeah, so I am a Norse Pagan, practicing Norse Pagan. So a lot of what I do, there's a very we talk about being open. I feel like, and I'm gonna speak for like the United States. It feels very like you always have to choose a side in what you do in the U.S., whether it's politics or religion or anything like that. And I try to be a very open and accepting person. And I think the fact that I'm not dedicated to maybe one of the more like Christianity, let's say, which tends to have a very closed-minded perspective on the world. Because I'm not dedicated to that, I try to have an open mind, open understanding for what's going on, and so there's a very strong Norse Pagan kind of root system. It's about family. It's about caring about each other. I don't really know how along the way we became really, really horny in chat. It just kind of happened. At no point was I like, all right, this is what I'm gonna be. We're just gonna be the horniest. But then we got really horny all the time, and I'm like, all right, well, this must be what we do here. So, I'm a very openly sexual person. We have those kinds of conversations in chat all the time. We like to have fun. We like to just interact. And so it's like, that's kind of just evolved along the way. And then just the relationships that I've built have become very important to me with the people that come around and who are part of EQX and a part of my circle. And so that too, it's like, that is what we stand for, because that's what we enjoy. We like to be ourselves. We we find a safe space there. We'll be lewd with each other, even if there's no true sexual intent behind it in a sense, right? You're like a sister to me, but yet I'm gonna be like, man, you're so sexy. Like I would, whatever, bend you over the table, whatever it would be. But just to hype each other up, right? Because at the end of the day, there's tons of negativity out in the world. And it's very easy to turn on CNN or any other news network and just see all the negative things that are out there. It's like, how can we be the opposite of that? How can we hype each other up, support each other? Now, yes, we give constructive feedback. There are sections in the Discord where we have art and we share, things that we've experienced, and we try to be very open to each other and have conversations like, you think you handled that the right way, or can I give you some feedback on this part of your song, or your art? What if you did this with this instead? Have you thought about that? Like, we try to just improve each other, and so that just kind of, I think, feeds into the fact that we've got this place where it's safe, you can be yourself, and we're just always improving, and it's good. And some days, we have conversations about depression, or we have conversations about like just making it through the day is enough. I've suffered with depression. I've attempted suicide. I've been divorced. I've been through long-term relationships that didn't work out. I've been a bad person. I've been on the other side. I've cheated. So I've kind of experienced a lot in my life that if there are other people who are suffering or struggling with those same experiences, if they're open to me sharing my own experiences with them and saying, hey, this is what worked for me, or this is what happened to me as well, maybe I can help them a little bit. So I don't know. It's just, I feel like we've come to a point where it's like we need to make the world a better place, and it starts, with me. And I'm blessed to be surrounded by a lot of other people who have a similar mindset, and we just continue to encourage people that feel that way to just come hang out with us and spend time and have fun along the way too, because it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom.
Yeah. Well, I think at least with when it comes to the horniness and the sexuality of it, it's something that's easy to understand, and it's easy for people to relate to, even in the friendly ambiance of innuendo and jokes, and just doing the compliments as a compliment rather than with intent.
Sure,
it's a kind of language that's easy to understand when you get used to the norms of it, which unfortunately something is lost out in the greater society. Sure. Is that too many people have become isolated from each other and from themselves.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to break through that is either through the language of emotion or through through physical language, which is,
Sure.
Making jokes and talking about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something that isn't taught anymore.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see things like that flourish. And it's really good that everybody's comfortable with it, and you can tell. You can go to some channels on Twitch and you don't see that comfort.
Sure.
Like, it doesn't matter how big the audience is, and how you can just see in the way the chat is going, and the language that's used, and how people are. It's not how people are talking to the streamer; it's how people are interacting with each other. That tells you a lot about the channel, because too many of them become gated gardens, where they form cliques like it's high school.
Yeah.
And then it's very hard to accept new people. But when you get to a place that's open and welcoming, and somebody cracks a fart joke, everybody loves a fart joke, it's easy to understand.
Yeah.
You get that sense that, hey, this is a community I can relate to, and shares some portion of my humor.
Right.
And it builds out from there.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something that kind of resonated with me, which was that like languages that you understand. And so, like, as a person, for me, I know a lot of people are familiar with like the 5 love languages or whatever, but physical touch is huge for me. So I think that's probably another reason why like the horniness is a big deal in the chat, because it insinuates like a physical aspect, right?
Yeah.
So for a lot of us, like, being able to have those compliments and a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like like hyping each other up and kind of there's a word
just
that
boosting each other's confidence.
Yeah. I tell MK this all the time to do to me, because it helps with my body dysmorphia, and it's escaping me at the moment. But just the insinuation that there would be a physical touch involved, or that you find that person attractive, is huge. And for me, it also boosts my self-confidence. And I think most people really do. They want to be desired. And there's a way to do that without making it like creepy, I guess. There's a way
without making it weird, right? It's partly phrasing and it's partly tone.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Right. So, like, whereas you hear all these unfortunate stories, whether it's in the gaming industry or the movie industry, it's usually entertainment, of people who are taken advantage of or approached in a way that's not exactly attractive and definitely not warranted. We avoid that, and we have the conversations where it's like, oh my God, you're beautiful, or you're gorgeous, or you look fantastic, or like you're gonna rock their socks. There's a lot of that going on where it's. I think that resonates again with like the things that we've struggled with, and some of the things that we, myself personally, and some of the other folks in the community, where it's about that self-confidence. It's about hyping each other up. It's about helping build that person up, helping them work through, whether it's issues or things that they're struggling with, again, so that they can be happy.
Well, I think part of it is also because it's generalized, right? It's not focused on one individual
right
at a time. It's a very blanket. Everybody in here has a cute ass, like, and it's widespread appreciation for everybody for their uniqueness. And I think that's part of what it is you have to, if you're trying to build that kind of environment, you have to be welcoming of everybody and,
Absolutely.
Appreciate everybody for their quality. And that's how that gets translated. And how you're talking, how the community's talking, lets everybody know that, it's okay, because it's not just a fixation on one particular person. It's just generalized love and appreciation for each other.
Yeah, and we're very careful about, too, and Mina, who's in the chat, is very good about this, the self-deprecating piece, because I am terrible about it. I am the type who is very hard on themselves, like kind of like I mentioned earlier. I set the bar high. And so we try to also nip that in the bud on each other.
Yep.
Whereas if like it's tit for tat, right? Like, so if I can't pick on myself and pick myself apart, then you can't either. But we try to do it in a way that is also encouraging and positive at the end of the day, so that it's not just us, shooting each other down, but so much that it's us lifting each other up at the same time.
The background crew is going through the cards,
Yeah. They're just checking all the equipment right now.
All right.
So,
well, I think we've reached a point where we can move to something a little lighter. Well, actually, it's actually pretty heavy, because Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker has gotten delayed.
Yeah.
By 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That kind of,
So I happened to be playing, when they had Live Letter last night, I did actually happen to be playing 14. And so I had a couple, or I think one person pop in and they were like, hey, did you see Live Letter? And I'm like, well, no, I'm playing. I'm obviously playing right now and trying to catch up on main story quests. And I'm a few patches behind because I stopped playing for about a year. And so they said, yeah, it's delayed. I'm like, well, not the end of the world. Because I do need to catch up, and that by the time those extra 2 weeks get through, I may be caught up, and then maybe even doing some of the more end game content at that point. So I'm not too worried about it. The other thing is too, like there's a lot of people who in the gaming industry who get very upset when you delay a game. It's like the end of the world, and I've been waiting for so long for this. I am of the opposite camp, who believes that. Delays are okay. Is it frustrating sometimes? Absolutely, sure. Especially if you've really been looking forward to something. But they wouldn't delay without a good reason, right? They're not delaying it just to delay it. They're delaying it because they either have bugs or things they want to work on or stories they need to flesh out. So it's for the best of us who are going to be the consumer of that product. So for me, it's not a big deal, but I understand. Yoshi P wouldn't delay it unless there was a reason.
Exactly. and they communicate it well. That's one of the things with a lot of companies, that they just announce a delay with no real communication or explanation. It's just like, we're pushing it to 6 months down the line. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about everything. Talk to you later. Yeah. It's all about communicating that, and that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Square has been very good about communicating.
Yeah, they do a good job.
Realm Reborn.
Right. Yes.
Maybe not out of the gate, but
we got a lot better. Yeah.
When the realm got reborn, it got a lot better, and now the regular communication. So, but that's one of the things about like games like Final Fantasy, the fan base generally is more forgiving anyway, especially after all these years.
So let me ask you,
it's been a long time.
Yeah, you having been in the industry for so long, let me ask you this, if maybe you have some insight, because I don't necessarily know why. So if you think about, like, obviously everything that's happened with Blizzard, many of those players jumped from WoW, and they gave Final Fantasy XIV a shot. And the feedback I've gotten from those people who I know have jumped, I don't say jumped ship, but who have swapped over, is that the community is much more, like to your point, forgiving, accepting, helpful, less toxic.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's such a huge difference in those two communities?
Well, part of it is because for Final Fantasy fans, just of the franchise itself, right? Wherever they entered in, the majority of them are JRPG fans, right? So they're used to very specific JRPG things. Like, they're used to grinding. Yeah. They're used to the story elements and the world and whatnot. And the world and the stories, a lot of these games are built in with stories that are about, friends struggling together and overcoming all sorts of situations and the kind of drama. It's, a lot of it's the formulaic, must reach here to slay boss. But inside of those, there was always those stories. There was those character relationships, and sometimes they had too much story, like Final Fantasy VI had too many storylines that they didn't finish.
Yeah.
So those fans had that understanding, and the way they approach the world is they expect those, like, they take that story and it's the struggle against the common enemy.
Okay.
And so they go into it, when they go into these, like the instance with dungeons and stuff like that, they know they have to work together to complete the thing.
Right.
But they don't have to be assholes about it, because when you treat people poorly, they're going to quit.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to leave your ass in the dungeon.
Sure.
And then you have to wait and hope somebody comes in and finishes it with you. Right? Yeah. Warframe's the same way. Yeah. Warframe, the community of Warframe largely is similar.
Okay.
Because that's the way the game is formatted, right?
Right.
You can do either of those games solo up to a point. Mm-hmm. But there's other content you absolutely can't do solo.
Right.
And if you're a toxic person, nobody's going to want, and they put the tools in there. If you're toxic, you're going to get kicked. Yeah. Or they're going to leave you.
Sure.
And then you're not going to progress. So it incentivizes not being an asshole.
Fair.
So it's partly the base fan base and their outlooks and the way that they approach the games, and then it's also they put the tools in there that basically gets incentives to not being an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which a lot of games don't.
Yeah, no, they don't. When I think about toxic fan bases, it's just like I always just League of Legends, like it just pops up in my head, like it's so bad. They're terrible, and like that's. I've been in COD chats and I've been in Xbox chats and all that fun stuff. So, but League is rough. You'll get flamed by everybody, not just the enemy team, your own team. So
MMOs have been like that forever. Like I did a lot of work years ago on community teams, especially with Acclaim when they were doing MMOs. Okay. And the feedback you'd get from players could be horrible, especially if there are delays or an update they don't like, or some incentive. There was a large group on one title, which I'm not going to name names, partly because there's some things I still can't talk about that are still covered by NDA.
Okay.
But they had added a element that required them to work together, and all the solo players revolted, and it even spiraled into death threats because they didn't want to play with other people. So it can get really, really bad, and it's partly because the way game content is built, some of the games makes it more rewarding to play solo than it does to play with other people. So when they get into these instances where they need other people, they act like assholes because they have that mentality. I can do it by myself anyway. I don't need anybody else.
Yeah. I've never understood, and I see a lot of this on Twitter because I follow quite a few, either whether it's a graphic designer or just some of the game devs for various games on Twitter. But like when a release comes out, or when something is updated, or whatever it is, some kind of game change, man, the fact that some of these people will go so far as to threaten lives, or say things like that, insult their families, or become all of a sudden toxic to people's religions or backgrounds or skin color. It's like, I can't, like, how do you exist as a human that you are able to say these things about a fellow man? Like, there are other ways to provide constructive feedback than to tell people that you want to like shank them in an alley. Like, there's just other things that you can do that can actually probably improve the concerns that you have if they're valid. Or there's constructive criticism and conversation that you can have with somebody to understand why a game is the way it is. Maybe they tried to do it your way and there was some technical limitations or whatever it is. But I can't wrap my mind around that, and it's difficult for me to understand. Obviously, it's not acceptable, but like why they think it's acceptable to have those kinds of, to say those kinds of things, particularly through social media.
It's a two-part problem. The main piece to that is because they have the freedom from consequence.
True.
Because there's no real consequence for them when they act that way.
You're right.
So they act that way, they get attention from it.
Sure.
And since there's no consequences, they can keep doing it. Because nobody's going to call them on it, not in a meaningful way.
Right.
The other part is that for a lot of games, it's partly on the publisher or the developer's side too, in that they don't have proper communication, especially when it comes to, like, it shouldn't be beholden on them to explain every design choice, because it really shouldn't. No. But if there's a major mechanic or feature that the community really likes and it's not feasible, it wouldn't hurt for them to explain why to an extent. It would cut down on a lot of these reasons. If it's, the engine simply cannot process this thing along with these other things, it just won't work.
Yeah.
Then gamers are more likely to understand that when it's put to them in that way. But if they just say, sorry, we can't do it.
Yeah.
And it's a really sought after feature, that's going to sour people and they're going to act out because they just think that, they're lazy or they don't care or, insert reason here. Most of it's garbage. Yeah. Sometimes it's actually pretty accurate. There are some pretty horrible people out there in development.
Yeah.
But mostly it's just poor communication on both sides.
Sure. Yeah, that's no different really, I guess, than in real life, right? Like when you make a change, like humans, like the human biology is meant for homeostasis, right? It wants to get to a point where it's comfortable and then, just can coast on doing the things that it does, because that's just kind of, it goes on the autopilot. So like whenever you institute a change, it's kind of like fight or flight kind of kicks in for your body.
Yeah.
But from a logical standpoint, the ability to explain the why behind a change or lack of feature, whatever, the why piece of it all, has always been critical for me to understand. And then also just to kind of, like you said, soften the blow, right? So that's a big piece that I think you're right gets left out. And I see that in like the workplace all the time, like when they make big changes. And I've worked in operations, and I've worked with retail, and I've worked in warehousing now for quite a few years. So a lot of times operationally, when you make a change for people, they're just like, I don't understand. But the why piece is critical.
Yeah.
And then again, to your point, I guess it makes sense is, there's no like if you were to tell somebody you're going to shank them face to face, you better be able to shank them because they're probably going to.
Like, there's going to be consequence of some kind. But when it's online and it's just text on a screen, right? Like whether you're complaining through social media or you're commenting on a forum or, whatever it happens to be, and it's just a name, mostly a made up, gamer name, some kind of gamer tag, and it's, oh my God, I hate you. I'm going to murder your whole family. You should die in a fire, you stupid bitch. Right? There's no consequence for that.
Yeah.
Now, some places will the better community managers and teams have the mandate that when that happens, they can ban that person.
Yeah.
They can IP ban them and they're gone. 9 times out of 10, most companies don't do that because as toxic as that person is, they may have dropped $5,000-$6,000 into the game.
Yeah.
And if they ban that person, there goes a portion of the revenue stream.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's you look at like things like even like this little whole Blizzard thing that we've been going through the past few months. How big of a factor money is in all this, right? Like even, I mean, money. The old adage, money is the root of all evil. Man, it's not far off the mark. I'll tell you that.
Well, that's it. Whenever somebody brings up these things to me, like when it comes like with Blizzard, my answer is always follow the money.
Sure.
Because that's where your answer will lie.
Right. Yeah. So it's a valid point. At the end of the day, yeah, it probably ends up somewhere in the money train, right? Like it's crazy.
Behavior is only acceptable when somewhere higher up allows it. So the higher up the rot goes, you follow the money, you'll find the point where it starts and where it stops.
Right.
So when you reach that point where, okay, it doesn't start happening until after this person, that's probably where you need to start cleaning your house.
Yeah.
Because things like that are leadership issues.
Oh yeah. Well, the other thing we talked about it in stream today actually with Blizzard because somebody had brought up like, hey, you're a Diablo fan, and I was like, yeah, I pirated Diablo when I was in high school. Or I had a pirated copy, I should say. D2.
As you do, yeah.
Yeah, I had a pirated copy of D2, so that's when I got into the series. But they were like, are you playing again? I'm like, I struggle right now with supporting Blizzard. And to be fair, there are many beautiful people, amazing people whose life's work is in Blizzard that have nothing to do with any of the bullshit that has gone on. And so that's my conflict is, do I support, this company who does have many people, more people, who are not guilty than there are that are guilty parties. Or do I take a stance? And I have to be careful about what I do too, because, even though I'm Tyr, I'm also associated with EQX, and as a leader in EQX, I have to be careful. So we've, as leaders have said, like, hey, we've got to be hands off about Blizzard. We're not going to support them. You are welcome to make your own decisions, but it becomes very difficult because I did enjoy. I think Warcraft 2 is when I got started in that series, and I loved it. I loved the RTS portions of Warcraft. So 2 and 3 were amazing to me, and D2 and D3 were staples in games that I really enjoyed. I love the lore, and I want to be involved in the remaster, and I want to get D4. But until I'm confident that they've cleaned their act up, I'm not comfortable, even as a person, supporting them. Even though I do know, again, that there are some amazing people. A good friend of mine, his daughter was actually, she was going to art school. She wanted to be an intern with Blizzard. Like, that was her goal. She'd been playing WoW since she was like 6 years old. Yeah. And she's like 18, 19 now. So, and she was like, yeah, I can't, I can't do this now. It's not okay. So, yeah.
Well, I've got friends inside Blizzard, right? And I've got contacts, but with with Angel Syndicate, my game media site, right, which we just relaunched. Right now, we're not covering Activision. I'm not covering Activision because they need to clean house.
Yeah.
Now, on the site itself, we don't go into news like that. We're not covering the controversy. We never cover things like that. We don't do the clickbaity stuff, and we try to avoid drama things inside the industry.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the few times I've made statements for the site as the owner and I have to use two different voices. There's myself, my personal views, which I go ham on my Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
But on the site Twitter and for the site accounts or on the site, there's very few times that I will make statements that relate to things like this or political statements or things like that.
Right.
There was a case many years ago now where locally a local girl went missing.
Okay.
And I shut down the site while they were searching for her. Because it was a local issue. It's not something that happens here, but also because she was the reading buddy to my son.
Okay.
At the time. So, there was that family connection.
Sure.
And that was a special case. It had nothing to do with gaming.
Yeah.
But it's as a responsible citizen, I had a platform.
Yeah.
So I used it. And then with the SOPA PIPA media website blackouts that happened a couple of years ago.
Yep.
That doesn't even really affect Canada, but we still shut down for it because it was a big issue.
Right.
Black Lives Matter, same thing. We didn't cover it on the site, but as a site, we took that stand because it's true.
Right.
And we went furthermore with not just Black Lives Matter, but with Canada, it's missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Okay.
Which is, one of our bigger issues also, because Canada's hands aren't clean when it comes to racism by any stretch.
Gotcha.
So, it's finding that balance. But right now with Activision, for me, it's not okay to cover it. And for the site, it's just not right.
Yeah.
Until they make significant changes. They're starting, but just because they're starting, it's not an all clear.
Yeah.
They got to do the work.
Yeah. No, for sure. And even like as a League of Legends, Riot fanboy, they've had their own share of issues with women in the workplace and some of the things that happen there. So, yeah, I mean, it's good to see these things come to light, but it's a hell of a shame that these things are going on because, as somebody who tries to be open-minded and accepting of people, it's just not okay. I don't know where these people get off thinking it is, and just, I don't know.
I mean, I've been open in the past as a survivor of physical, mental, and sexual abuse. It's about control, largely. And unfortunately, people in power have control, and they exert it in sometimes the worst possible way. And again, that's a leadership issue that isn't, that's one of those things that should be not necessarily taught in high school, but in university, especially when you're going into industries. They should have a course on responsible leadership. Yeah,
that's a great point. I know. I encountered. So my background is actually in criminology. So I have a background in crime law, in psychology, and one of the things that we learned about. I actually took some courses on serial killers, and so there's a lot of profiling involved, and there's a lot of discussion around like things like rape. To your point, a lot of people, and this is changing thankfully, but originally rape was it's a sex crime. It's how it's defined, right? But really it's not about sex. Most of the time it's about, to your point, control and power and dominance over the person that is involved. And so, that power piece, so money and power apparently are the two things we gotta watch out for around here, because follow those two and you're going to find probably some toxic individuals.
Yeah, and that's in every industry you can think of, including streaming.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Absolutely. Yeah,
but that partly goes with fame too.
I say this all the time, and I don't know. So I've like growing up, I probably had some idols. I'm sure there's people who I thought were probably, their shit didn't stink. But as an adult, I've quickly learned, and I try to get people to understand that just because a person is more successful than you, or famous, or in our case, a Twitch partner, or in some circles, they're an actor or whatever else, some place where they're famous and they seem to be much more successful than you. Just because they have found success in their desired career path does not mean they're a good person. Holy God! Like, please do not think that they are an angel and that they do no wrong. And it just, the media sensationalizes a lot of these folks who do things that are not nice. I don't know what to say. Yeah. Who do the wrong thing, which is good. I think the attention needs to be brought to that too. But we have to understand as people too that there is a lot of folks out there who are successful, or who do have power, or do have prestige, or do have the things that we want: money, power, partnership, acting, whatever. But they are, they're not a good person. And so you really, it kind of comes back to our whole gaslighting thing that we talked about, and just those relationships. And you've got to take the information you've got and make a a smart decision, and those people aren't perfect.
Well, role models aren't defined by success.
No, it shouldn't be.
That's the biggest problem. Well, exactly. Yeah. Role models are defined by their success, not by the actions and person that they are, but by what they've achieved, often in one particular area.
Yeah.
Right? You can be the greatest entertaining streamer in the world, right? You could be Ninja.
I don't like that guy.
But you can be a complete douchebag in the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And yet people will aspire to that because all they see is that success. And that's a societal thing.
Yeah.
Our societies, especially in the West, have exemplified and exalted people who reach success, whether it's financially, politically, or, it's very rare that it's intellectually.
Yeah, that's fair. It's very fair. It's usually somebody in entertainment. It's usually somebody in athletics, or political. Maybe not so much, but yes, there's definitely a political factor. But yes, I think from a U.S. standpoint, there's definitely a lot of folks based. The whole like Republican Democrat thing just blows my mind too. Because it's like I'm a Republican. I have to think this way. There's nothing else that possibly could exist outside of my sphere.
That's something I commented on actually on socials the other day, was that for some people, especially when it comes to politics, but not always, it can be religion and other things too. But when politics becomes the defining aspect of your personality, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it is, because I don't understand. I've known a lot of people, and unfortunately, and even where I grew up, who because they're a Republican, they believe just this, or because they're a Democrat, they believe just this, and there can be nothing else. And the other thing that we're really bad at as people is just like listening and understanding. And just because somebody disagrees with you, or has a different viewpoint, I should say, because somebody has a different viewpoint than you, we just want to be like, no, you're wrong. And I think social media has exacerbated this quite a bit, because people just want to be right on social media. That's the end game. Is like, I've just got to be right. And my opinion is always more valuable than yours. And very rarely do you see any kind of true discourse between people where, I see your side, you see my side, where there's any kind of actual value add conversation, where it's just not like, it just doesn't devolve into insulting each other. And at some point, probably like derogatory words and things being said about each other. It's just, I don't know. Well, it's weird.
It's rare, whether it's on socials or in person, that a person will admit that they're wrong.
Sure.
Right? And, unfortunately, that's the way it is. I've had interactions on social media and in life where I have, even recently, I said something like an old phrase from my childhood came out in social media, and somebody called me on it. And I realized that, that wasn't right. And I corrected myself on it and admitted I was wrong. Right? If more people took that time, I'm not bragging about, because it's something that I had to learn from in that moment. And I had to re-examine that, hey, some of these things, you grow up with some of these phrases, and some of the things like your grandparents would say.
Yeah.
You think about it now, and like when you're in a normal conversation, they'll pop out because you don't think about it. But now when you sit back and you re-examine them, you're like, no, that's not good. And if more people had that moment of self-reflection, we'd probably be much further along as humanity overall.
I'm the same way, and I can think back to like issues even on streaming where I didn't take action. Like there was some things that happened in my channel, and I didn't take quick enough action to like stamp it out. And I ended up like dissecting that later and being like, I messed up. And I think that's important, right? Like it's we're not perfect, and none of us is perfect. As much as we might like to think so, or think that we're the best or whatever, we're not. And so to be able to do that self-reflection and, like you said, and say like, okay, does this really make sense anymore? Or, did I make the right decision? And I don't think a lot of people take the time to do that, but if only we did. Only we did, we'd be a lot better off.
With streaming, for streamers, we're the last person who should be intervening in things in our chat. That's what we have mods for. because we're not going to, a lot of times we're not going to be objective, because either we're balancing interacting with chat, and doing our presentation and playing a game, and at the same time we want to have, our viewers and have fun and everybody feel welcome. Right. We're not going to be objective about things that might be happening in chat, because we're going to be thinking, like, we don't have the time to process it fully, like we should.
Yeah.
And really analyze the situation, where our mods are there, they're watching it unfold. They know a point when things have reached too far, and hopefully they take proper action. Because sometimes we're going to let things go that we shouldn't, because we don't have the ability to have that extra spoon to manage that situation.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's why it's important that you've got those folks that you trust, who can mod for you, who can do the right thing, and who take that seriously. I know sometimes, to your point, like I think in this situation, I don't think I was playing marbles or something. And the other thing is too, like I'll admit sometimes I'm probably a little too forgiving. I try to, I'm the type of person who tries to see the good in everyone. Yeah. I'm big, like, because I'm big on self-growth, I'm also big on teaching people lessons, but not necessarily like, I'm going to teach you a lesson right here, right now kind of thing. It's like, all right, I need you to think about what you did, and why that's not cool. Like, or why the way that you acted was disrespectful to somebody else, right? And I think too, that's where I'm learning as a person too, when we talked about drawing lines, what is okay, what's not okay, and just how can I, again, make sure that I'm making the right decisions that protect the people that come to hang out and have a good time, and who do feel like they can have that safe space. Baby, come here.
Well, I mean, that's a big part of it. There have been moments where something will happen in chat and I won't even see it, and one of the mods have already just, because they know what is appropriate and what isn't. Right. I've communicated that as best I could, and I trust their judgment, and I won't even know what it is. I'll just see so-and-so has been banned, and I'll be like, deleted. Okay. I'm right, just like, okay. And I'll ask them later what it was, so that I know. Right. But at the time, I'm just going to be, okay, I'll just move on from it. And sometimes I won't even acknowledge it, because it's been dealt with. Better to just move past it, and then, I'll debrief on it later. Right. Absolutely. Because it doesn't take a lot, especially for streamers who are neurodivergent, to bring our energy down or bring our mood down when we're live. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's very easy to get caught up in somebody else's bullshit when we shouldn't. No, for sure. I know for me, it definitely is, that's something that I latch onto, and because it's so important for me that we have a place where everybody can be okay, and be themselves, that like when something like that would happen, it would definitely mess with the vibe, and probably kill my mood for sure. Okay, that is one cute pupper. That is the baby. This is my daughter, my dogter. She is 14 in December, so she's an old girl. She is a cancer survivor. She is now, 2018, so 3 years this year that she had cancer. Very, very serious. So basically she started getting sick and throwing up, and we took her in, and they thought she had swallowed something when they did the sonograms and the MRIs on her. And her intestine, there was a big lump, and so they thought like maybe she had like a sock in there or something. So they're like, all right, well, we need to go in and we need to do surgery. So they open her up, and they found basically like a softball size, not softball, probably baseball size tumor in there in her intestines. And so they removed a foot of her intestine, and it turned out to be pretty serious cancer, but she's done very, very well since then. She's hanging in there, and now she's just got old age creeping up on her. So try to take care of her. She's we found out recently she's got the doggy version of IBS. So she's got a very specific diet. She's allergic to gluten. She's got all kinds of stuff going on. But she's our little
Our little one, huh? Needy, very needy girl.
My one cat is almost 15 now.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's slowing down, and
Yeah.
he still plays like a kitten every now and then, but he doesn't jump up on things like he used to, and he's gotten picky about how he eats, and he's a second generation cat.
Okay.
So
very cool.
Yeah,
she's got pretty bad arthritis, so we're managing through that as well. We got lots of stairs in the house, and we pick her up and move her whenever we can.
Mm-hmm.
But she's our little one. We call her $1 million dog because we have spent a lot of money between the cancer and all the other stuff that she has been involved in. But because we don't have any kids, it's she's our little one. So yeah.
Well, sometimes the price doesn't matter.
Oh no, not at all.
I look at my kids, and they're expensive.
Oh yes, I know.
But it's like I don't care.
Yeah, nope. Same for her. We like when everything was going on, you'd be dog vet bills, and I'm sure for those folks that have had pets, they're not cheap. And there's no for most people there's not insurance, or you don't consider the insurance that's around nowadays until it happens. And surgery to remove a tumor out of the intestine is not cheap, and then recovery and overnight stays and all the other scares we've had. But I wouldn't take it back.
No,
wouldn't take it back at all.
You can't put a price on that at all.
No, the time with them is invaluable, right? So she's a little one. We're gonna get our next Stream Raider skin is actually gonna be her, the next one we get. So
that's awesome.
Make a little BB War Beast.
I absolutely look forward. I've actually. It's funny, Stream Raiders. I actually wanted to talk to you about this. I pulled back from it.
Okay.
As a captain.
Yeah.
Because I have concerns.
Okay.
That I've been thinking about, and I don't know if the company has addressed it, but I was looking at skins, and somebody mentioned it to me on I think Twitter or something, and I've been thinking about it, and it's like a lot of these skins that people get are based on other people's IP.
Yeah.
And what's the gray zone there? Because I'm thinking you're making money off of a very obvious copy of somebody's IP.
Yeah.
What's that, like the legality there? And I'm thinking, well, what if one of these companies, especially like Nintendo, decides to sue over that? Like, who gets dinged for that? Will Stream Raiders, or will both Stream Raiders and the streamer get dinged for it because the streamer's profiting from those skin sales themselves? Now, if you have original skins, it's fine.
Yeah.
But,
No, I've considered the same thing because some of my favorite skins on Stream Raiders are like the Dragon Ball Z ones that they have. Like there's some some very blatant Dragon Ball Z, and there are others, of course, too, that I've seen. But I mean, essentially, what happens is you either submit a design, whether it's original design or whatever you want, to that team, to their art team, and they draw it up for you. So I'd imagine the property ends up being, you can use it as you please, but it's still theirs. Yeah. So I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I'd probably have to see if they have anything written into the affiliate agreement when it comes to skins. But they can also reject skins. So. So I would imagine with them approving and rejecting it that they would probably assume a lot of the liability there.
I would hope, but it's one of those things that I think it's a very gray area, and I'm concerned about it because if it did become a litigation thing, it could be quite messy, especially when it comes to intellectual property.
Yeah.
And there are companies that will viciously protect their property.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, and I think it probably depends on how they trademark whatever that is.
Yeah.
Is, for example, like if you look at like Mario, an 8-bit Mario, is it because he has the M on his cap? If I remove the M, is just the 8-bit Mario that you and I know is Mario, but there's no M on his cap? Does that mean that I'm good? Like, so I don't know if they consider that when they create these designs either. So I think for me, I'm just gonna try to stick my best to like all original designs or stuff that is not trademarked.
that makes sense to me. Like, if you're going to go all original, then you should be fine.
Yeah. But I do worry.
It's like, you know, I've been sitting there looking at it, and I'm just like, I'm not comfortable with the ambiguity of the legality of it. Because, you know, while it's, I mean, I enjoyed it. It's fun as a player. You know, it's something, a nice distraction. It can generate interaction with chat, and, you know, there are benefits to it. But I look at it from the business side, and I'm just like, there's something that doesn't quite ring right with me about this.
Yeah. So
I'm just like, I'm not gonna do that right now.
Yeah, and that's fair. They actually just acquired too a significant amount of funding to continue on with what they're doing, because, you know, they've essentially been in beta for like open beta for quite some time. Then I think beginning of beginning of October, maybe end of September, they acquired, like, I don't want to say like $10 million or something significant, because it's a team of like 10 people. It's not a lot of people that run that whole thing, to continue what they're doing, because they have stream raiders, they have stream pirates, they have chat plays chess, I think is the other one, the third one that they've got, and they've got some others that they're working on. So I would imagine that to be able to acquire some additional funding and capital, that they must have had somebody look over something, and they were like,
I would hope. I would hope, but, you know, those Nigerian princes with the emails, I mean, some of those are pretty compelling, you know.
You're right. You know, I still haven't got my 10 million in my bank account, but
or when you get the phone call from the computer technical department, and they want to give you a rebate, you know,
they just need you to wire them
money there
first. Yeah. Or, like, you know, hey, just send us your credit card information, and we've got this Apple gift card that we'll send to you. Yeah. Seems fine.
Yes, that's a thing. Questions from the peanut gallery.
Nigerian princes? Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, since we're talking about games, what games are you looking forward to right now?
So obviously Endwalker I'm pretty excited for. So Elden Ring is probably the only one on the horizon that I can think. Well, no, I take that back. So Elden Ring is huge. I definitely am interested in that. And they just released another trailer, I think, for that recently. 2 or 3 minute long trailer, which I'm really excited for. I am a huge fan of George R.R. Martin. So that is cool. And I'm also a fan of the Soulsborne trilogy or saga. So to me, that's great. And then, of course, God of War Ragnarok is obviously would be off-brand if I said I wasn't excited for that. But no, I was surprisingly, like, God of War. I played the older games, but wasn't really until the 2018 version where they went into the Norse, where they went to Norse mythology, that I really got hooked on it. So I'm very interested in that and how they end up closing that out, because I believe this is supposed to finish it off.
Yeah.
These two games. And then as we speak through it, the other one that I'm excited for is actually Horizon Zero Dawn. So the update for that, Forbidden West, because that was a fantastic game. Although I never finished Frozen Wilds, but the game itself was pretty darn good.
Okay. I'm surprised maybe I'm not surprised, but for myself, at this point, it's mostly Dying Light 2.
Okay.
Because the first one was an experience that was different than most zombie games.
Sure.
Because it incentivized using melee rather than using guns, which I really liked. Because all too often, those games are, you know, you get your gun, you just shoot everything in the head, and you just carry on, right? Back for Blood and Left 4 Dead and, you know, Resident Evil in general, you know, the big equalizer was having a gun. With Dying Light, guns not so good.
Yeah. So I never played Dying Light, but when that came out, I was pretty much burned out on, like, zombie games. Just the zombie genre, whether it was Walking Dead, whether it was like this, like, everybody had hopped on that train, and I was like, I'm done. Like, let me off this ride. So I never played it. Saw a few people play it. It's also first person, so, like, for me, I'm unfortunately have really bad motion sickness. So First-person games and I don't get along very well. I only recently learned, like a year ago, that I can take Dramamine and it actually helps me. So I'm getting into first-person games again, and for the first time, really. So so that was another turnoff for me. Was just like zombie, motion sickness. Yeah, I'm good. So it's interesting. Have they released a? They said when it's coming out? Because I know there was some delays.
It was pushed to February, I believe.
Okay. Because I know for a while that they didn't even have like a date per se or a quarter, and then there was some concern that it wasn't even going to come out. So
their PR team has been really good about updates. I get press releases every week or every 2 weeks now.
Okay.
So they're really on top of things.
Nice.
But the other thing was it's got the 4-player co-op, but it's not on rails. It's got the open world. Yeah. And, there's meaning in the time of day and actions that you take.
Sure.
Maybe not so much as you progress through, like, the quests themselves and the story, but just going around the world, there's, different things that can happen and different outcomes based on what you do, which was nice. Yeah. So I think the next one, 2 is going to be a further extension of that. Okay. And it's all the rooftops, and I think it's very interesting to me because I was never big on zombie games.
Okay.
For the most part, I skipped most of them. Like
me too.
The last Resident Evil I played was Resident Evil 2.
Okay.
And I haven't played one since.
Yeah, so I enjoy the Resident Evil series. Which is weird, I guess. That's one of the few zombie series that I actually do get involved in. But I am a huge fan of any game, or the idea that any game has that open world aspect.
Yeah.
So like, anytime you can make decisions that impact the world in different ways, like what I mean, like it's not a static outcome.
Yeah.
Anytime you do that, like I'm like hell yeah. I mean, because I could just walk outside butt ass naked right now, and it would change the way that my neighbors would interact with me if I had clothes on. So like it's very much more aligned with real world. So I like games like that. I've always enjoyed that. And I know, like, surprisingly, liking games like that, and I haven't played the Mass Effect series is weird. And I really need to go back and play that one because
I
Dragon
tried
Age
to play it.
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
I didn't get into it.
Okay. Was it storyline?
I have a lot of. I'll be honest. I have a lot of trouble getting into Western RPGs.
Okay. That's okay.
I've tried to get into Elder Scrolls. I've tried to get into Dragon Age. I tried to get into Mass Effect.
Okay.
They just don't resonate with me.
Okay.
And I think it's largely because of the gameplay mechanics themselves more than anything.
Yeah. Fair.
Because they're a lot of them are the first person, and even in the medieval setting, it's first person, but you're still slashing with sword and using bow and stuff. Mm-hmm. And most of those didn't resonate with me. I enjoy Assassin's Creed for some god-awful reason I don't know, but only certain ones.
Sure.
But for the most part, most Western RPGs just don't resonate with me.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I'm really picky about my RPGs, and I'm an RPG. Like, if I had to choose one genre to play forever, RPG is going to be where it's at. And I think because, like, as a kid, I love to read, and usually it was fantasies, fantasy novels, sci-fi, and so that lends to RPG very easily. And I think I've always enjoyed the idea of, like, I'm going to save the world kind of thing, which I used to have a huge white knight syndrome, which I probably still have. And I try not to perpetuate, but so I love RPGs. But that being said, it has to have a really good story. Like, that's why I play a game, is the story. Something about the story has to entice me. So I did like Dragon Age. I do like that series. Excited for whenever the next one comes out. But what surprises me though is that, like, games like that, I haven't gotten to some games and it's mainly the first person piece. So like Mass Effect. That's the reason why I didn't play it, but I've got a lot of friends and folks who tell me I should. I love The Witcher. The Witcher was a great series. And again, of course that's third person, so it's a lot easier to be involved in. I do like Elder Scrolls. I didn't get into Elder Scrolls until, I want to say Morrowind though. And that was mainly because I didn't have a PC capable of playing any of that stuff. So Morrowind, Oblivion, and then huge fan of Skyrim. But again, I immediately go to third person. I don't do first person.
Yeah.
But I do like that. But again, there's a large story element to that. Lots of lore. I'm a lore whore. I love lore. If you can give me a good story, I probably am going to give it a shot.
So that's what I tried to find in those, and like Fallout, I couldn't. But yeah, Gears of War I fell in love with, and I can't explain why. There's just something about it. I had fun with it, and I wish. What was it? Bulletstorm.
Okay, not familiar with that one.
It was a one-off by People Can Fly when Cliffy V was still there. I think it might have been one of his last titles that he did there, and it was in the Gears of War frame, kind of, but a different story, and that I actually really enjoyed, and I still can't explain why. Because I'm not a shooter guy generally, but there are certain times when certain shooters will resonate with me. Okay. Mostly because of the story. Yeah. Right? Like Back 4 Blood, it entertained me for the story from start to finish. Okay. You know, now I'm probably never going to play it again unless friends want me to. But on my own hook, I won't. But it was an entertaining 10 hours to get through the thing. Yeah. You know, I like short, contained experiences sometimes, and then I like my sweeping 80-hour Final Fantasy game. Right.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think it's weird for me now because when I stream, but basically like the only time I really play games now is streaming. So because I work a full-time job, and then it's like, all right, and I'm working 45 or 50 hours a week, and obviously I have my marriage to worry about, so I want to make sure I spend enough time with Mrs. Tier, and then running EQX/streaming. There's not a whole lot of time there because I also get up really early, and I love to hit the gym and work out and all that kind of stuff. So so managing my time becomes very important, and so it's tough for me to play new games, and so I miss a lot of new things. Unless I can find a way to work them into like streaming. And so like even for Final Fantasy 14, I was like, look, I'm falling behind. I want to play Endwalker. I'm going to dedicate one of my streams a week now to Final Fantasy. So Friday nights, we play Final Fantasy 14, and that's so I can catch up on content, and we'll do that stuff going forward. So it's tough because like even let's think like Cyberpunk. Like I've got all these other games that are on my PS4 right now that I haven't finished. Cyberpunk being one of them. Which I really have enjoyed what I've played of it. Ghost of Tsushima I haven't finished yet. Haven't finished Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So there's like all these games that I was like, I started and I got like a few hours into, but it's like, I need more time in the day.
Now that Kira's here, we have to pause and enjoy the Kira command because it's required by law.
By law. Contractually obligated.
If the audio will play.
Good morning, Kira.
There we go. I need that clip in my life every opportunity I get, because Kira doing the chicken dance is direct serotonin to my brain.
Absolutely. If you don't smile watching Kira do the chicken dance, you got some serious issues.
Exactly. I think to your point about playing games, like I haven't finished a game other than Beasts of Maravilla, which was a short indie game that only took 4 hours to play through. Okay. I think that's one of the only 2 games that I've beaten in the last couple of years, because with the site and the game journalism and the games that I get in every week that I either have to assign out or cover myself, I've always got new games to play, and now I'm playing them on stream. Yeah. So I dedicate so many X amount of streams to them, and then I have to move on to another game because I've got all these games that need to be covered. Right. So I don't get much time to play off stream between the kids and all the work that goes into being a streamer. Yeah. And, plus work and all the other things, relationships, and just time spent with Muffin and with friends and doing all the things. The times that I spend playing a game when I'm not streaming is doing like my dailies in an MMO, that things that I can do quick are done and I can move on.
Right.
Because, you got to find that balance.
Yeah. And for me, like, again, as like with League, I'm still so entwined with like that game that there's the competitive grind on that becomes an issue, because you'll look and you'll see some folks who play like thousands of games, and I'm like, I don't know how you guys do this. I'm just trying to make sure I'm a gold player so I can get the rewards at the end of the season. And so, we've got a lot of folks in EQX now who are learning, and we're trying to teach them, and playing with them or doing competitive even for them for the team. It becomes very difficult to either even find new games or dedicate time to those games. And so I'm gonna have to figure that out, because if we're playing Yakuza and Final Fantasy right now on stream, then I've got to figure out how I can work those games in. I mean, I picked up Disco Elysium recently, and I haven't touched it, but I am so interested in that game, and I really want to play it, just because it sounds so different than what I played in the past, and there's a really interesting, risk-reward aspect to it all, and the mental health piece is really cool to me, and I just got to find a way to squeeze it in. And I'm a creature of habit, and I'm also somebody who likes to plan, so like, I've got my Final Fantasy on Friday nights, I've got Marbles on Sundays, but that leaves me like 2 streams a week on Saturday and Wednesday, where I would feel guilty to change it to something else, because like, I'm like, no, this is the series we're playing right now, we've got to play these. But I could definitely probably bend a little bit.
And one of the best problems to have is when your friends will message you, or they'll gift you a game, and they'll be like, we got to play this together, and then you have to find time to do that.
Yeah.
And you have to balance, like, I want to play with my friends, but I have to stream, but I don't want to exploit my friends on stream.
Yeah.
In order to, that, I think that's one of the things I struggle with, is the guilt of, a friend, or when I have, viewers or friends and people in the community who gift me games, and they send me that, this would be really great for you to play on stream. And you sit there and you stare at it, and you're like, when am I going to do this?
Yeah, where's this time that I suddenly have to play this game? Yeah, no, it's for sure.
I don't know where you think I'm going to have this time.
Like, I totally, your gift and thoughtfulness is not lost on me, but yeah, I'm big too, when I play on stream, like I used to play, when I started streaming, I was just a League streamer. And so like all I would play is League, but it's very difficult. The game is so busy all the time to make sure you're giving the chat the due attention that it deserves, in my opinion. And then also do well at the game. Like if I'm playing, every once in a while I'll play like just like the unranked, uncompetitive version, or like the all random mode of League. And then I don't really care how I do. It's more, again, I'm still focusing on chat. But I also don't, there are some games that I get and I just don't want to play them on stream, because I feel like I can't dedicate my attention enough to chat and to the people who I care about. Like I'm here to play a game, but I'm also here to talk to you guys. So, playing something like an Apex or a COD or Valorant or even League on stream in the competitive aspect is not going to work for me.
Well, exactly. And there are some games where you'll try to stream and it just doesn't quite work. Like there have been games that I've streamed, and we'd get, 45 minutes, hour into it, and something isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, the feeling is off, like, chat isn't quite digging it. I'm not quite digging just the feeling of it.
Right.
And you just like, I can't stream this game. I want to play the game.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work for stream, because there's just something about it that just doesn't fit right.
Yeah. That's something that I think like a lot of new streamers struggle with too, because they want to stream certain things, or they struggle with, should I enjoy this game, but should I stream it? And I know a lot of times the advice I would give them is like, hey, like if you're not enjoying yourself on the stream, that's going to translate into how you interact and what your energy is like to the chat, right? So like if you don't vibe with the game, don't play it. Please don't play it. Don't think you have to play it. Because again, at the end of the day, there's an entertainment value to what you do. It's a very large part of what you do. And whether that's because you are able to engage with the chat and you give them advice, or you have high energy or whatever it is, anything that throws that piece of it off is going to impact how chat is. So I always encourage them to do that. So that's important. I think that resonating with the game is really good. Not that it's not good to try new things or things that you think you'll like, but there are going to be times when it's just not viable.
Yeah. Or streaming games that you think will be good for stream, but you don't enjoy.
Yeah.
That's one of the worst traps to fall into, because
terrible
you
idea.
will not get anywhere with it, because everybody will know.
Yes. As good as an actor you might think you are, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's gonna come through.
All right. At this point, we're actually going to take a 2-3 minute break to get up and move, because I'm old and I need to do that.
Okay.
So this is where we hydrate, and I will be right back. Remember, kids, drinking water is important. Drink your super water daily. Oh, I absolutely had to pee. I'm old. My bladder is the size of a whoopee cushion. One little poke and it goes all over the place. That's just how it is. Welcome to your 40s. Yeah. I either let it run down my leg, or I just, grab the piss jar and, shoot it into the jar under the desk. And while we're at this break, this is the beginning, the first almost 2 hours of our Extra Life stream. So we are raising money for Extra Life. It going to the IWK Foundation in Halifax, Nova Scotia. If you would please consider donating, I would greatly appreciate it. If you can't, that's fine. Share it, tell your friends. You know what to do. You guys have all seen Extra Life before. It's for the kids. Got the shirt on. So yeah. It's what we do. We're going to be going for at least 12 hours tonight. After podcast, going to flip over and do some 7 Days to Die with Matt and the crew. Possibly Daigoji if he's not fall down drunk. So that'll be something. Otherwise, thank you everybody for lurking and hanging out. Oh, we know he probably is.
You guys talking about me?
Maybe.
It's actually BB's medicine time, so I had to go get her meds, which was
that works.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
And there's all the socials and the Discord. Feel free to join. Not a whole lot happens there, which is probably a good thing, because otherwise we'd all go nuts.
Some days,
we're not talking about his penis anymore. You're right, Danny.
Yeah, some days on Discord, like even just so I have I mean, I'm sure we're all in way too many Discords. But like, so I have all my notifications turned off except for key parts of like EQX's board chat, and then like my section, and then any ats. So like if anybody ever needs me, they just they all at me. But like some days, people in Discord will just be popping off, and I'm like, guys, I gotta work. Please, I want to be here for you and be bullshitting and giving you memes, but I gotta work. I'm sorry.
Like in mine particularly, it's usually the game hype Discord channel because everybody's dumping. Well, actually, it's mostly me and Matt who are dumping games. We get press releases, and we're like, "Oh, this game!" And it's always the weird indie shit. And I'm just like, "This game looks great." And so that's the most active channel in my Discord.
Sure.
Is just trailers of new games that are out or coming out that otherwise nobody would hear of. Because we're addicts for indie games.
And I love that. It's I prior, like as a console player, like previously just strictly a console player, or mostly a console player. I really didn't take time to consider, like, I mean, the most games that were indie didn't even come to console, like old, maybe 5-6 years ago, right? Yeah. And still, there's a very large gatekeeping of like, it takes a significant amount of money to be able to advertise and put the value into a game that's going to go onto a disc, prior to mostly being digital. Put it on a disc and get it out there and actually make money. But like, I'm so glad that, as I become a streamer and being more involved in PC, that we have things like Steam, because there are so many really amazing indie games out there that don't get the love that they deserve.
And a lot of them aren't long experiences. You don't need to spend 40 hours playing them. You can get through them in, 5-10 hours. You still have a meaningful experience. You still had an enjoyable time. And you're not paying $60, $70, $80, $130 for them.
Right.
Like Stardew Valley made serious bank. Primarily a one-man development indie game, which has hours of play when you think about it, plus with multiplayer, and there's that replay value. But it wasn't an expensive game.
Nope.
And, it really filled a space, especially on PC.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think of some other indie games that I've got involved in recently, but just the exposure that they can get through Steam and having that platform is really great. And I'm just glad that, like, I personally have opened my eyes up to some of that stuff, because it's very easy, again, having been a mainly console player, to just not realize many of these games even exist. What are your thoughts, since I mentioned Steam, on the handheld, the Valve handheld that's coming out, the Steam Deck?
I've actually given this a lot of thought because my one son is very interested in it.
Okay.
Because he is on the autism spectrum. Okay. So he likes having, like, he loves his Switch. Because when he needs to retreat into his own space, he can take that with him, and he can, lose himself in a game, especially when his anxiety is high. Sure. So he really wants a Stream Deck, or whatever the hell they call that thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't think of the name.
Steam. I think it's a Steam Deck, which is not going to be confusing at all.
Not at all.
But he was very interested in it, and I'm of two minds to it. Yeah. One is that I can see the utility of it. It's very nice. You have games on the go, and that's great. Yeah. But the question becomes, when it releases, I don't believe they're upgradable. Like, internally, you can't upgrade them. I don't think they are. So once that releases, that's primarily the stopping point on when you can stop getting new games for it.
Fair.
A little bit, you might be able to get games for another year, but after that year passes,
right,
that Steam Deck is not going to be able to play it.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I think my other concern is, and even though many games on Steam have that controller support, there are quite a few that are not fully integrated with controller. Yeah. So I'd be curious, because it's a handheld, does that mean that game's not playable then on that Steam Deck? Like, how does that translate to? And I think they mentioned something like being able to connect peripherals to it or something like that. Like,
you'll probably be able to connect a keyboard to it, but that kind of
it's so weird.
Defeats the purpose, right?
It's so odd. Let me hook my mouse and my keyboard up to my Steam Deck. That is like, yeah.
And I think it will have. Well, I think it will have the capability to hook it up to a TV.
Yeah,
which is part of the premise, is being able to play your PC games on a TV, which kind of is irrelevant since you can hook up a TV to your PC already.
Yeah, just HDMI to your
PC. You can already do it. So other than taking it on the go, that's kind of where I stopped seeing a point to it.
Yeah.
Right? Although, to be fair, there is a huge back library of games on Steam that it could play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's decades of games that could be played on it from Steam. So it's not like you're going to have a small library of games to play.
Right.
But like you said, a lot of those games aren't going to work with controller, and if you start hooking up peripherals to it, and you hook up a mouse and a keyboard and this and that and the other thing, then why don't you just buy a computer, considering they're not going to be cheap?
Yeah, no, they're not. I threw my name in the hat for like whatever the 512 gigabyte one was. We just had to like give them $5, and then you reserved your copy. So we'll see what happens. I'm not sold on it yet either. I would like to hear a little bit more about the controller support and how they're going to solve that. Like, is that a thing? Are they going to have a limited library for just stuff that will play on it? Like, I just don't know. There's questions that I need answered before I'm like, yeah, that's the thing.
Is it going to have a port for VR? Will it be VR ready? I could see a use for that. If it's VR ready and you can connect a VR headset to it, that could be interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I'm interested to see where VR goes in general. I have yet to get like anything VR. Again, I think I'm tentative because of my motion sickness.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with VR is unless you have a nose, like a visible nose, you're going to be screwed.
Yeah.
I've tried VR and there's a reason I don't own it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I haven't, it's been a long time since I've done anything VR, and I haven't done anything recently enough to say that, like, I can lean one way or the other. But that's, the possibilities of that are endless, but I don't know.
And if they put a camera in it, I could see them having augmented reality with it. And that could be interesting too. But I have a very love-hate relationship with any handheld device, because the handheld devices that I really liked all got discontinued.
Okay.
I mean, I liked the 3DS and I liked the Game Boy. Nintendo has always been fairly solid.
Sure.
But, I really liked the Sony Vita. I really enjoyed that. And I would still use it if mine hadn't died.
Yeah.
And it died 3 days after the warranty expired, of course.
No.
So, but they had a really great machine, but they didn't really know how to capitalize on it.
No, they didn't.
And
really
I'm concerned that Steam's going to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I enjoyed my Vita too, or I actually do. It's over there. I haven't played it in quite some time, but I really enjoyed playing. I think I was playing like the Final Fantasy X remaster on it. Was the last thing I was playing. So it's been several years, but yeah, no, I enjoyed it too, and I liked the PSP before the previous iteration of basically that handheld, which had some pretty solid titles on it too. I've played it a lot at work, but yeah, no, like I've enjoyed handhelds. I had a Game Boy, I had a DS, had all the Nintendo ones because to your point, especially growing up as a kid, they're very kid-friendly titles.
Yeah,
they're things that we grew up on, like the Marios and the Pokemons and those kinds of things.
Final Fantasy.
Zelda, Final Fantasy, Mythic Quest, and like all those things that were on those handhelds. So like I had all those, and then I transitioned to had a PSP, had a Vita, but I think as I got older, I did less gaming on the go. Yeah. Just me personally. And then I got a laptop for when I was traveling for work. So there was a little bit, basically League for the most part while I was traveling.
That's actually reminds me of one thing about with this handheld from Steam. Considering the price point, how, like, do you really want to carry that around with you to some places?
Yeah.
Like, you got to look at the potential of, especially like for kids, if you're going to get it for your kids, teenagers or whatever, kids are fucking forgetful.
They are.
Right?
And they don't take care of things very well either.
They don't take care of things. You're not going to take it to the beach.
Nah.
Because that would be horrible. You have to worry about, you know, on a bus and leaving it on the bus, or, you know, all these different situations, or taking it on an, like, you're going to take it on an airplane and then try to play it on an airplane. Like,
yeah.
You can only have so much mobility with something that costs that much money. And I actually had the same argument for the Switch, too.
Yeah.
Because you watch those commercials and you see these, you know, the hip groovy kids are meeting on the playground and they're connecting their Switches. I'm like, I don't really see that happening in a lot of places.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair call out.
You know? So they have to prove the value to me before I can really make a call. And right now I don't see the value.
Yeah. Fair.
But, you know, that's true about any console at this point. Because we're getting to a point now where, you know, the only reason I can conceivably think of getting a PS5 is because of Final Fantasy 16. If 16 gets announced that it's coming to PC a year later, I'm good. I can wait.
Yeah, I've struggled with the PS5 thing too, because I've had a couple opportunities to grab one, and I am primarily a Sony fan, just for most of the IPs that end up on that console. And I've been a Sony fan for quite some, actually most of my adult life. Never was really into like Halo or you know, like Gears of War, some of the Xbox exclusive stuff. And now that I have a decent PC, a lot of that stuff is, you know, available also on Windows, or through Xbox. So, yeah, no, but I've struggled with it too. It's like, what at this point do I need to have a PS5 for when most of my game time is spent on stream anyways? So, and I don't have a capture card at the moment, and I'd have to find a way to make that work in my current apartment, with like the console and things like that. So I've teeter-tottered back and forth on what it will be, and to your point, depending on like, because I'm interested in Final Fantasy Origin. Is that what it's called? The one that's like the souls?
No. There's one. Yes. Final Fantasy Origin, which I think is supposed to be a prequel of. Ark, thank you for the raid. You beautiful being. Yeah, Final Fantasy Origin, and thank you, Magpie, for the follow. I don't know why that's in the box. Final Fantasy Origin is supposed to be, I think, a prequel to Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah, and it's like a Soulsborne version of the game.
Something like that,
so
with some really weird aesthetics.
Yeah, that one I'm really interested in too, because, again, fan of Dark Souls and that genre, and of course Final Fantasy. So the two of those together is spicy content for me. I definitely would love to check those out. So those two things might be a deciding factor for me on console. But I would still struggle to finish the game, which sucks, because I need to find the time.
Absolutely. Oh, look.
Holy shit.
There's Princess Bargain. Wait for it. Uh-oh. What are you doing, Bargain?
Not like this.
1,000 biddies. Thank you.
But Final Fantasy 16, I think, goes back to Evilis.
Yeah, that's what I had heard.
I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, and it's a return to the medieval feel too, which is interesting. Now, I was a fan of 15. Have you played 15, and what did you think about it?
Yes, I didn't get to play 15 yet. I got it, but I didn't get to play it. Magpie, thank you for the raid.
Everybody, welcome in. 15 is awesome. 15 caught a lot of heat for some of the delays that they experienced, some of the things that they changed, some of the storyline. But I really enjoyed it. It is kind of like a bromance journey for the most part. But there's some pretty decent character development, and the DLCs really tie it all in together. There's a fair amount of content. You know, I enjoyed it. I don't jump on the hate trains, or you know, I try not to let hype also be something that makes me feel one way or the other about a game. I like to try it for myself first before I decide.
Target's telling us to keep waiting. Well, I'm gonna do this thing right now. Welcome in all you raiders. I'm AnjelusX. I stream, I write, I make fart jokes, podcasting. This is episode 3 of Phantoma Dreams with Tyr, who has graciously joined me to discuss all the things. All right, I'm waiting.
We're still waiting.
The princess is getting uppity. I don't know.
Oh my god, he's so angry.
I agree with you. I have been a fan of Final Fantasy. Here comes Bargain.
The princess is here.
All the raids, all the time. You beautiful beans, princess. I love you. And I've never understood the hate for Final Fantasy titles. Like, there are certain ones that I've been disappointed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It goes without saying.
Where did you come from? What?
But, you know, even 13, the original 13 disappointed me. I absolutely adored 13 too.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay.
But, so, you know, it's one of those things.
What about
just
Lightning Returns? Did you play that one?
I have only played a little bit of it. I haven't actually played my way through it. I keep meaning to, but I didn't get to.
Yeah, to your point, like, even though Final Fantasy is my absolute favorite series, and like if I had to pick one forever that I had to play, it would be Final Fantasy for sure. There are some, to your point, that are like, to me, are just not, they don't resonate with me. I always tell people Final Fantasy 9 is probably my least favorite Final Fantasy of all time, because I just don't give a shit about Zidane as the main character. There are bits and pieces that stand out to me, but like, I can't really get into the story. I don't really care about the villain, and I'm a villain guy. I love villains. Like, if a villain is a badass to me, then like, all right, I'm gonna like this game.
Yeah.
Or if that main character is a badass, like those two things have to really get me. And 9 did not do that for me. Now, you know, there was some great music. I really enjoyed some of the mini games. To be
music
fair,
in Final Fantasy, period. Let's be honest.
Yes. I agree. So that was still there for me, but it was just probably the one that I've cared for the least. And then the only Final Fantasy that I have not finished is 12. I couldn't really get into 12, so whenever we finally actually play that on stream, I will finish it, and it'll be the first time that I finish that one. And that was, for me, the battle mechanics. They were nivelous in that one as well. But like, for me, like, getting into the battle and the story, I just, at that point when it came out, I wasn't a fan of. So, but for the most part, you know, most of the other ones, there were bits and pieces that I really love.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the follow, Polly. All right, are the raids done? Can I do the spiel now? Can I do my shtick? You know, I'm gonna try. This is everything you need to know about me in one clip, and certain people who are lurking in chat are going to squawk now, but enjoy it.
I'm gonna be a boxing blueberry.
There you go. Welcome in. Thank you for the raids, Magpie, Bargain, Ark. You beautiful, beautiful beans. All right, where do we go from here? All right, what about some of the other offbeat titles for Square? Like Secret of Evermore.
Okay.
Or Secret of Mana. Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, you know?
Okay, so, because so as a kid, I was super poor as a kid. Like, so, growing up, I had a Nintendo, and I pretty much had a Nintendo until the time that so I got that when I was 5, until I was like 10 or 11, and then I was able to convince my dad to go to a pawn shop, and we bought a Sega. So then that was the second console I had, was Sega. And so I never had a Super Nintendo. My dad's good friend had a Super Nintendo, but he had very limited titles, and so like when my dad would hang out with his friend, I would go into the basement and play Super Nintendo. Usually with Super Mario World, like I think that's what he had. A few other like random titles. So I never got to experience Chrono Trigger when it first came out. However, once I got a little bit older and I got a PlayStation, Chrono Cross came out. And Chrono Cross is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Whether it's now that's another one. That's like for me, Square music is just, it always pops off. So
Yes.
soundtrack on Chrono Cross is amazing. The story for me was really, really great. The ability to have so many different characters that even on like first, second, third playthrough, you may not be able to pick up. But then like, new game plus. You go back and you run it, and then you're like, oh shit, I can get this character now. Was really, really cool. So Chrono Cross was amazing for me, and I really love that game. And then I think they did a remake of Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VI.
Yes.
Final Fantasy VI, and then there might have been like a third, another Final Fantasy or something else, or those two games together. Anyways, they released the Final Fantasy Anthology, I think it was called.
Yes.
On PlayStation.
Yeah.
And that's when I got to experience that game. And holy cow. Because at that point I was a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. I still am a huge Dragon Ball fan. My whole right leg is tattooed in Dragon Ball. So I knew Toriyama and his artwork, and then for that to be in the anthology with because he's the main artist for Chrono and for just the whole game. To have that and then experience that game was really, really cool for me. And then again, it's a Square game, so music is there, storyline is on point, and it was just a really good game. So I am a huge fan of those two games as well. And I probably at some point down the road will emulate Chrono Cross on stream, as well as like Legend of Dragoon, which I'm a big fan of as well.
Which they need to make a sequel of.
Rumors of remaster are out there. I don't know how valid those are.
There's been rumors
for a while.
It would be nice. It would be nice if they made a sequel. Like, that world is rich and we could explore it. But, it would be nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, with playing them in reverse, did playing Chrono Trigger add a little bit of flavor to Chrono Cross? Now that you've played them both, because
yeah, it did for sure. It helped me kind of understand like what I was dealing with in Cross, and the whole time jumping, and then like this world and that world and all that kind of stuff. Because it's not a direct sequel; it's more of a loose sequel, to the two games.
Timelines, wibbly wobbly.
Yeah, but hell, I mean, Chrono Cross had a really great battle system too. I felt like that was different than anything else that I had experienced in a while. So I am a huge fan of those two games. This actually reminds me of, there's a game called, and it's gonna escape me. I feel like it starts with Legend as well. There was this game, I think I downloaded actually the emulator for it. I'm gonna have to look it up. That was on the original PlayStation. Where did I hide
Legend of Legaia?
Yes! That's the one. So that was another game.
I don't play JRPGs at all.
No, never once. That I was a huge fan of Legend of Legaia as well. That was another one that was a super interesting, unique game. Pretty good music. The storyline wasn't great, but it was good. But the battle system was very unique and interesting. We had to like capture the bugs or whatever they were called, and use those for abilities. That was cool. I remember it had really good mini games as well. Like you could be in the one city that had like the arcade in it, and there was a bunch of like the boxing mini game and all that kind of stuff too. That was a great series for me. Suikoden.
Yes. Probably
in my top 5 as well.
Yes.
Huge fan of at least Suikoden 1 through 3. Those 3 were probably my favorite. 1 and 2 especially. And I still remember getting 1 because I had read about it. I was a huge fan of like PlayStation Magazine back in the day, and that was one of the few ways that I could get access to what games were coming out and what was out there and what was good. And so I'd seen Suikoden, and I was like, all right, this would be really cool to see. But I didn't have I didn't have a job. I was just a kid. Didn't have a way to like find games. I had never seen it at Toys R Us because Toys R Us was the main place that I got video games. And there was this like Suncoast Electronics or something ridiculous by my home that was going out of business. And so my dad and I popped in there one day, and they had games, and I just happened to see it on this standing rack, one of those rolling racks. And I'm like, we gotta get this game. and fell in love with that series again. So for me, I'm a huge music head. So like, if a game has great music, it will help me love that game. And so it had really great music, and then just the ability to, you can have 108 different companions to travel along with you, right? So that was really cool. Those two really, Suikoden 1 and 2, I guess, were probably, if I had to pick, my favorites. Great story.
I'm in the minority where I actually enjoyed 4 and 5.
Okay.
And Tactics, because they were still like, it's all taking place in the same world, which was nice. Yeah. And there's so much more world yet to explore, which makes me sad, because Konami, fuck Konami. But and actually, Suikoden Tactics came with a if you bought the retail physical copy, came with a soundtrack disc too. Yeah, which was nice. That.
Yeah.
So that reminds me actually of anticipated games. There's a new Star Ocean coming.
Yes.
I never expected that. All right, we've turned into a bus stop. Thank you for the raid play. Welcome in, everybody. I'm going to do this shtick again. I'm AnjelusX. I play games, I write, I talk about stuff, I make fart jokes, I make dick jokes, and I hang out with good people like my friend Tyr. Welcome in, everybody. This is our regular podcast. Well, I shouldn't say regular, because it could happen at any time. My regular podcast where I could do it whenever the fuck I feel like it. But it's also the start of our Extra Life stream. We're raising money for kids, specifically for the IWK in Halifax. So welcome in, everybody. I hope everybody's stream has been well. Everybody's good. We're just talking about JRPGs because that's a thing that we enjoy. And Star Ocean, new Star Ocean.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of Star Ocean too. And to your point, I don't think I didn't expect it. And I hadn't followed the series in quite some time. To be fair, they haven't released a game in several years.
It's been a few, yes. There was oh my god, the name escapes me, which is unusual. Faith and Faithlessness or something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up now. But I've played all of them, and
who doesn't love beans?
My original exposure to Star Ocean. So it wasn't the first one, because the first one wasn't released. It was on Famicom, right? Because it wasn't released for the NA or whatever.
Yeah.
So Second Story was the one that I got into.
Yeah.
Which I loved. Second Story. And for me, that was probably
the best.
Yeah, for me, that was probably the one that actually. It was the first time I think I had experienced combat quite like that too. Which was like the active combat, but you're also using your skills and abilities.
Yeah.
Which
you see again in Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah, right. And then probably, I'm not sure which iteration it is, but I'm also a fan of the Tales series since we're on JRPGs. Yeah. So Tales at some point adopted that, and I'm not sure who had it first, but a similar combat system in the Tales series. But yeah, so no, I'm really excited for that. Although I will admit the trailer's kind of lackluster. In the way that it looks physically, it's not real clean. But I'm probably going to give it a try because I am such a huge fan still of that series. And I didn't even realize Tri-Ace was still around doing stuff.
Oh, I know. That's what surprised me most, honestly. Like, somebody... I got the press release, and I read it, and then I went away to make a cup of coffee, and then I came back and I had to read it again, because I was like, wait, this is saying Star Ocean and Tri-Ace, and I'm like, where's Tri-Ace happening?
Like, where have they been?
So, and I think we've only gotten a little peek at it, and I'm hoping it has the hallmarks of a Star Ocean game, and I hope it has the deep cuts and all the things. But it was so surprising to see that I didn't know how to process it at first.
Yeah.
That'd be like a new Xenosaga, because I loved Xenosaga.
Another one that I really enjoy, and Xenogears especially. If I could bring back something more in the vein of Xenogears, between the arts and the storyline, was amazing. But I'm a little concerned about Star Ocean, to be honest with you, because they came out of nowhere and because they haven't done anything in a while, and because Tri-Ace has been so out of the limelight. I don't want them to half-ass it.
That's the other thing is when they chose to announce it. Because if you would think for something like that, a moderately well-remembered franchise, you think they would have announced it at TGS.
Right.
At least. Or one of the other trade shows.
Sure.
But it was just by the way, Star Ocean. Out
of nowhere. So that's my concern. And then for them to do that and then just be like, for the trailer to feel like, So, I mean, I will check it out. I will give it an honest shot because I do have such fond memories for that series. And I've always enjoyed pretty much all the games. But I am a little worried about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fair because all we think about as far as Square lately has been Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
And then these weird Marvel games that...
Not really sure.
Well, Crystal Dynamics did Marvel Avengers, and it hasn't gone well at all.
No, terrible.
So Square published it, and I think I think the president of Square even said in an interview or something recently that maybe Crystal Dynamics was the wrong studio to make the game. Which, that's a pretty bold statement for Square to make. Let's be honest. Yeah. They usually don't, So, suddenly, all of a sudden, we have Star Ocean, and it's like, I want to be excited, but you're right. There's something about it that just doesn't quite.
Yeah.
An emulator for nice.
Yes, Magpie. That's what we were talking about, was LOD, and I have one. So I might play it at some point.
I still got the CDs somewhere.
yeah, my parents have my CDs. So the Tales series is another one that I really enjoyed, and I have fond memories of. I started the Tales series also on PlayStation because Tales of Destiny came out, and I was a huge fan of Tales of Destiny. Tales of Destiny 2 is pretty good, and then Tales of the Abyss. So those are really what got me into the Tales series, and I really enjoy it. Since then, I've kind of fallen off, but I do want to play Arise. That's another one that just came out that's had really great reviews, and the one thing that I must say about the Tales series is it's been pretty true to its roots. All the games are pretty much very similar. You know what you're going to get when you get into a Tales game, right? Like there's going to be a certain storyline, and you're going to have a lot of lighthearted banter in the characters, and usually multiple playable characters. So I do also enjoy that one. It's another one that has usually pretty good music, pretty lengthy story, lots of side quests, just lots of interaction and relationship building with characters. So Tales series is also one of my favorite JRPGs.
Fire Emblem games, I played one or two. It wasn't a franchise that I got deep into because, well, for starters, I missed a lot of them because I wasn't on Nintendo systems. I had a Wii U, which, by the way, I love the Wii U. I don't care what anybody says. They could have done a lot with that if they had marketed it correctly. The marketing was shit. So I never really got into Fire Emblem games, especially the older ones. I played a couple, but the other franchise I can think of that I really enjoyed, there's two, and that would be Breath of Fire. I'd love a new Breath of Fire, but again,
Capcom.
And then exactly. And then I wish, if Square's gonna go back into the deep library and look at their Enix properties, I wish we could get a new Ogre battle.
So I was thinking that as you were, we talked about Fire Emblem. So the one that came to mind was Ogre Battle and Tactics Ogre. Were those ones. I played a few Fire Emblem games, but I think that at that point they were on maybe like DS or 3DS or something like that.
Yeah.
And I do like them because I do like Tactical Battle, and Final Fantasy Tactics is one of my favorite games. Huge fan of Tactics. But I didn't really play a lot of them, and I've heard really good things about it. But I try... So I have these aversions, and it's probably unwarranted. But, like, I'm not a fan of Disney. I don't really like Disney. People will tell you this all the time. I'll say F Disney. I don't really... Like, if there's something that's an IP, Nintendo IP, I really am very cautious about, like, approaching some of those things. Because I don't know if it's, like, just because something is popular or fanboyed... I tend to take that like with a huge grain of salt. I'm usually the type of person like that hipster mentality. It's like, oh, I like something before it was cool, or I'm not going to like it because it's so popular. I am 100% guilty of that. Where if something is really, really popular, I might never touch it, or it'll take me a very long time to even take a look at it because I tend not to like things that have that much hype behind them or that are very, very popular. It's just the way that it has worked out for me. And so like Fire Emblem, I never was really a huge fan of. Was okay. There were some things I like about it. I like it's essentially like paper, scissors, rocks, you know, with your characters, and the fact that like, you know, Lancer beats this and is, you know, Axe Holder beats this kind of character, and Mage beats this kind of character. I like that a lot of them have the permadeath. You know, that's kind of a cool aspect where if your character dies in a lot of the battles, they might die for good. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, no, it would be nice to see another tactics or ogre battle, tactics ogre. That'd be really cool. What was the other one you mentioned?
Breath of Fire.
Yes. So I was a huge Breath of Fire fan too. So like a lot of my exposure to JRPG was when Sony brought it over to the PlayStation. Yeah. Because they're really the ones that exposed me to it. At least that's my first exposure, because I didn't have a Super Nintendo, because that was probably the other console that did a really good job of having Western versions of JRPGs.
The NES had some too. Some really good ones too, but
Dragon Quest, you know, or
you
Dragon
have to
Warrior.
be of a certain age.
Yeah.
Uncharted Waters, Genghis Khan 1. There's some. They're not RPGs. They're war games, war strategy games. Romance of the Three Kingdoms 1, I think, was on NES.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm old.
So yeah, Breath of Fire 3 was on PlayStation, and I was a huge fan of that one as well. Again, great art, great music. Breath of Fire 4 was a huge fan of that one. Wasn't really a fan of 5. They went to the 3D route with that. I think that was a little. There might have been one more after that, but like once I played 5, I was like, eh. And so 3 and 4 are huge fans. And actually, the reason why I have Switch Online right now is so I can go back and play 1 and 2, which I played through like one time a long time ago. And so I'm working my way through those two as well.
I do remember text-based RPGs, Danny. I'll give you an example. I had, when I was in junior high, would have been grade 8? I had this shitty, ginormous TI-800 computer. I use the term loosely. You know, it had the memory of a postage stamp. And it had, I think, a 3-color monitor, maybe. But I was able to get this really weird Star Trek text RPG to run.
Nice.
And it was weird because I will forever remember the moment where there was this scene where Spock gives a cat call and a wolf whistle to Nurse Chapel. It was the weirdest thing.
It's so out of character for Spock.
Exactly. I'm just stared at it. I'm just like, what is this?
Spock wouldn't do this.
But it was, you know, so yeah, I remember text RPGs and MUDs, and, you know, I was there. You know, my first console was an Atari 2600.
Yeah.
You know, with the little weird joysticks.
So mine was NES, and I've been playing games since I was 3. I have now been playing games since I was 3 years old. My babysitter had an NES, and so I'd play at their home. But I had a good friend in middle school and high school who had Commodore 64. So we would play a ton of shit on the Commodore 64, which was all floppies. So like Maniac Mansion and like all these other games that we would play. Lots of text-based like RPGs where you'd have to type in your response to, you know, whatever was going on, and then they'd be like, no, unrecognized command. You gotta pick something else out, right? Something like that.
It taught you how to spell.
Yeah, that's true. A little bit of typing involved as well. You know, make sure you rest your wrists in home position.
Dysentery playing Commodore Oregon Trail on the Commodore 64. Yeah,
or on the Mac, the old Mac.
Yep.
The other game that was really good that didn't get that I think probably didn't get enough hype around it is, do you remember Vagrant Story, also on the PlayStation?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was a really good one that I thought was pretty original. Another Square Enix title. Apparently I'm just a Square Enix fanboy is all it is.
They've added to it. They're on Steam. a bunch.
Yeah. So Vagrant Story was really, really good. I enjoyed that one. I actually have a Vagrant Story tattoo on my forearm. But it was really cool to see, and I thought that was a really good IP. I wish they had kept that one going. But it was original.
They actually, Square has done. That's the thing with Square. It's like they have these main franchises, but every now and then they'll release these weird one-off titles. Like Secret of Evermore was like that.
Yeah.
And it even had a Final Fantasy IV tie-in.
Yeah.
Which was nice. And then Radiata Stories, which I think was Tri-Ace, actually, which was an interesting game.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And, you know, nobody's really doing that stuff anymore outside of the indie space. The big companies aren't really, really experimenting.
Yeah, I'm curious. You're right. It's probably been a while since we've seen something outside of like one of these long-term IPs get pulled in or created or even taken a risk on. I do remember, was it Radiant Story or Radiant Saga? Yeah. Radiata Saga, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It was on PlayStation 2.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Do you remember your first playthrough of Hello Kitty Island Adventure?
Yes, it's my favorite game. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, Bargain. You missed it. Yeah.
Sorry, Bargain. You missed. There's no going back. The time has moved on.
We can't go back there. Of course you missed it. How dare you? Magpie, see you later. Night.
Later, Magpie. Thank you for the raid. Coming in and all the things.
Fist them in the ass. Unrecognized command. But
I was actually talking about this with Muffin yesterday about when I was in elementary school on lunch break. We could leave school back then.
Okay.
You know, because it was the early days of nobody giving a shit. We'd get lunch at my friend, his mother worked at Greco, so we'd go down there, get free pizza. We'd go to his place, and we'd play half an hour of Chippendale Rescue Rangers before we went back to school.
Nice.
And it's one of those things. Like, games have been, for my generation especially, has been a centerpiece of our entire lives, because basically when I was, 3, 4, 5 years old, consoles became a thing, and I grew up with the evolution of consoles and then PC games. So I could map out most of the significant moments in my life of what games I played.
Yeah. I can as well. And I can specifically remember because like PlayStation was a big jump for me because it was like from Genesis to PlayStation, right? Like that was my jump. So there was a long stretch of time where all I had was a PlayStation. That's probably why I'm such a huge fan of Sony to this day, is because of all of those games that I played. Tomb Raider was big for me. I played that back in the day, like the original Tomb Raider. There was a huge aspect of that for me where my best friend in high school, he played it. He and I played it together and tried to beat the puzzles and stuff. And then also his father. His father was a huge fan of Tomb Raider, and he ended up passing away a few years, like my senior year. And he was like a second father to me. So. So there's like some nostalgia and some emotional connection to the console and some of those IPs too. I used to play it, like PlayStation was my jam, man. Jet Moto, I'd play some of that on there. Games like Twisted Metal. There was some stuff that I would play, kind of like now, where it's like if friends are playing it, I'll play a game like Jet Moto or Twisted Metal. But when I was playing by myself, it was always an RPG. It was like Final Fantasy, or it was Alundra. Alundra was a great platforming RPG. Trying to think some other games, but just
Silver
like
Story Saga.
Yep.
Populous. And some of those.
Never played Populous.
That was a weird one. It was a weird RPG tactical strategy game that came out out of nowhere. I can't even remember who made it, and then they made a sequel to it. But it was really weird.
Yeah,
it's like you could see from that game actually is kind of where the games like Warcraft and Command and Conquer kind of came from, that because that's kind of the seeds of what started that whole RTS genre, because that's kind of what that was. Just like ActRaiser was one of those hybrid games that combine things.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I mean RPGs, and to this day, they're still my favorite genre. You know, like if I weren't playing on stream, like with the games, I mean, I'm playing RPGs on stream really anyways. It's, you know, it's Final Fantasies and Yakuzas for the past few months. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I love. It's just, there's something about, you know, being involved in that story. It's basically a book, you know, but instead of reading the book, I mean, you're reading the text, but you're playing the book out. So, to me, that's what's really attractive about it, is seeing those stories come to fruition.
Well, that actually reminds me, I've made this point before and everybody always argues with me about it, but The Sims is an RPG.
I mean, really,
it's an RPG where you're writing the story.
Yeah, I mean, you're role-playing as a Sim, right?
You're role-playing as, well, a better version of yourself, usually.
Yeah.
Or a very evil version of yourself. But either way, you're writing the story for your made character that's based on you or some version of you.
Right.
But, you know, they try to categorize it as a life sim, but really it's an RPG at its core. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I feel like it probably fits in the RPG genre better than, like, is it considered just like simulation genre? Because, like, when I think of sim, I think of like Sim City or like you know, like something like that, which
Sim
is like
City, Sim Ant, Sim World.
Yeah,
Roller Coaster Tycoon. Every game can be considered an RPG if you are captured by the story and it develops in a way that you progress through it. So all those tycoon games and business simulation games, you're basically role playing as a business owner trying to build your business.
Yeah.
And yes, Leisure Suit Larry is absolutely an RPG. Because you're questing to find the best fuck.
Yes. Just like real life. Yes. Can you make it make noises? What kind of songs can you write on your mayonnaise?
I mean, you could play it with a spoon. To be fair. Oh boy, here we go. Majin really enjoys fisting things. And it seems like those two together could cause trouble.
That one got me.
Well, we've covered games, we've covered streaming. What are you looking for in movies?
So I'm not really a huge fan of movies. Usually, like movie-wise, it's the wife who is interested. So Mrs. Tier usually is the one who jumps on it. Although I have to admit, so like I just saw Dune, which I was really impressed with, or more impressed than I expected. I went in expectations low, but I was more impressed with it than I anticipated. So I'm looking forward to Dune Part 2 for sure. But I think honestly, like when I saw, I used to be a huge fan of like X-Men and Spider-Man growing up, but kind of lost touch with it like as an adult. And but I'm interested to see, like, with all the hype and with just how much is going on now with Marvel, like how the next Spider-Man movie plays out, because and the Doctor Strange 2, because I think that's going to open up the multiverse, and so I'm really curious to see what they end up doing with all that. I mean, they've got content for years and years now.
Have you seen Loki yet?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the multiverse is basically open. I watched The Eternals. I got to see that. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody.
Okay.
But it's setting some things in motion. All I'm going to say at this point, it's too soon to say anything else.
Yeah.
But there's some things.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's interesting.
Yeah, so that's I'm interested to see where the multiverse goes, right? Because you've got now, you know, the Spider-Man is supposed to have like all the other Spider-Mans in it allegedly, right? Like the previous iterations, they've almost confirmed that at this point. But I like growing up, I was a huge fan of like Wolverine. So like we've pretty much seen at least the Hugh Jackman version of that kind of play out, which I've enjoyed. But Spider-Man and then symbiotes, like I was a huge fan of Venom and then Carnage. So Carnage for me was a big deal, and I'm really curious kind of how now that's going to integrate and what else they do with like the symbiote piece of Spider-Man. So those are really where my interests lie.
Yes, Morbius confirms that Venom is they share a universe, but it's also, and yes, thank you for the follow, Proto. I don't know why my follower alerts aren't working. I don't know what borked that, but you know, it wouldn't be stream if something wasn't broken. And Venom 2 confirmed that Venom, at least for now, is in the MCU.
Yep. As
of the end scene there. I'm not going to explain that, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah. So the question becomes, at least in terms of the movies going, is once the next Spider-Man movie comes out, is that it for Spider-Man and the Sonyverse and the MCU together, or are they going to spin off and do their own thing? Like, what kind of cross-pollination are we going to see there?
Yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless, and I don't think they're going to close any doors. I think if anything, it's going to just get more complicated.
I think Sony would be stupid to shut that door. I really do. I mean, they want the maximum profits. They want, you know, since they've got the licenses, they want to get the most out of it. But they've already proven that they keep dropping the ball on their own.
Yeah.
So, and I'll be honest, the Morbius trailer did not do a whole lot for me.
The new one?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. I'm not super familiar with Morbius, so for me it was like, okay, now I understand the character a little bit more. I am a fan of Jared Leto, so I'm curious to see how well he does with this character. And then again, like for me, it's just like, how do the pieces all fit? You know what I mean? So like figuring that out and how things tie together has always interested me.
I think part of my problem is that if I have this thing where if Sony pulls away from Marvel, then we won't see Morbius and Blade together. So what's the point?
Yeah.
And yes, Proto, I completely agree with you. We need an Alpha Flight movie. Like, we need an Alpha Flight movie. Can we make that happen?
Flight? What is
Alpha Flight is the premier Canadian team in Marvel. You
gotcha.
know? I mean,
gotcha.
The best known Canadian superhero for most people would be Wolverine, kind of, sort of. But Alpha Flight was the team.
Gotcha. I am by no means a Marvel expert. Like I said, most of what I got from, or most of my knowledge on Marvel came from X-Men animated series.
Yeah.
As a kid, and then actually some of the video games, which is terrible because I don't even know if they're canon. But things like Maximum Carnage and things like that.
Everything's canon in the multiverse, and that's true whether it's Marvel or DC. Like, I read very specific comics when I was a kid. I was more of a DC fan than I was Marvel, except for X-Men, Alpha Flight, and then eventually it was Deadpool and Punisher, and, you know, the shoot-offs from there. Some Fantastic Four, and, you know, some bits and pieces of other things. Spider-Man for a while, and I kept up with a lot of it, but I was more of a DC fan when I was a kid.
Gotcha.
And then I became more of a Marvel fan as a teenager.
Sure.
So, you know, it's one of those things, which is why the state of DC right now just makes me sad.
I was not so that my only exposure to DC as a kid was pretty much the Batman animated series, which was fantastic, right? It was amazing. But the movies have been less than impressive to me. Now the Dark Knight trilogy, pretty good overall. But other than that, like, not been the greatest for me.
Well, that's the thing. It's like with DC, and I will say this until the day I die, the live action universe just keeps, they go one way and it's great, and then they screw it up. DC animation has been wonderful for years.
Right.
So why, when they wanted to launch a live action universe, they didn't bring over some of these animation people?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, it makes no sense to me. Even now, the animation side is wonderful. Live action, no, we don't need a live action Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, wait.
Oh, we do. We do, but we don't.
Yeah,
Most
no,
live action adaptations of anime are just no. I have some cautionary hope for Cowboy Bebop,
yes,
but it's very tempered.
yes, I am. I also
Very tempered.
yes, I also am not going to hold my breath, but I am slightly hopeful. 2 out of 10 hope. Yeah.
I mean, there's been rumors for, if we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, let's go all the way in. There are rumors of Robotech getting a live action adaptation that Leonardo DiCaprio was involved with, and then Akira has been bounced around for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Which I don't want that to get an adaptation. It doesn't need one.
That one makes sense why they would want it. Like I understand.
It makes sense why they want it?
Yeah, but
nobody wants it.
Yeah, that would be rough. That'd be a
If
rough
if they want it to take something from that generation of anime to adapt, they should, and they want to do something that with like a hard R, then they should do Ninja Scroll or Vampire Hunter D.
Yeah, I could see that working. I could see D working.
You know, especially coming off the heels of Castlevania's success, that would work.
Yeah,
but
no, that could
Akira, no.
Yeah,
and
I'm.
Go ahead.
I'm even surprised. I'm a little surprised Cowboy Bebop is even like. I get it because I'm a huge Cowboy Bebop fan. But like of all the ones that they've picked, like I don't know that I just don't know why. I don't know why they chose Cowboy Bebop. I mean, it's good. I'm like I said, I'm not mad at it yet, but I am curious why that was the series they chose.
I think it's partly because it's something they can't get wrong, and partly because there's an audience for it that isn't necessarily anime fans, because I could see it kind of loosely appealing to the Firefly kids, who have been crying about that particular show forever.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I could see some things there. Yeah. Berserk live action can.
Berserk live action?
Yeah. Let's just not go there.
Not a porn?
I'm trying to think. One franchise that would be good live action that would take minimal effort would be Pat Labor, because that was a police crime drama to begin with.
Yeah,
that just happened to have mechs in it.
Yeah, no, I had very little exposure to Pat Labor, but I do know because there was this channel that we had when I was growing up, and like every Thursday evening, they would do like a random anime like show or a movie. That's how I got exposed to like Robotech and Pat Labor was on there. There was a couple other ones that I probably don't remember, but like I would always watch them because it was like the only way to see anime besides Toonami, which Toonami I pretty much knew what I was gonna get. I was gonna get, Dragon Ball Z, Big O, Gundam, Sailor Moon. So they were like that stuff I knew. Kenshin, all that kind of stuff. But like to actually see like new anime that maybe I would never see anywhere else, my only exposure was like this channel, and that's how I saw things like I think I maybe even saw Ghost in the Shell on there at one point.
Probably.
Because they were doing movies, and Pat Labor, Robotech. There's probably some others that I can't remember, but that was my exposure to that. Which it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, most of mine were from bootleg VHS tape that were passed through the fan community.
There you
go. Before there were downloads for movies, kids. Friends would buy and import these anime VHS tapes, these big blocky things, and they'd copy them and give them out to their friends.
Yeah, that was it. Occasionally I would see stuff too. Again, like there was this electronic store in my mall where I grew up where they would have a section that was, there was like, here's your wrestling VHS tapes, and like here's your here's your movies and everything else. And then there was a very small anime section where I was able to see a few things. But I never, as a kid, again, we didn't have a lot of money. Didn't have whatever. So it was never like Dad would be like, go pick something out you want to see. And I was like, oh yeah, this anime. But I would at least have some exposure to some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, Danny. You know, you had to work to get your anime back then. And sometimes it wasn't the most pleasant to waste. But, you know, I think the thing with Hollywood adapting anime is they're not going to stop doing horrible ones until somebody starts doing adaptations of Western cartoons in live action and showing them just how horrible they are. I would love to see somebody do a live action adaptation of Heavy Metal. I think that would end the argument. I really do. I mean, they tried with Aeon Flux, and that was horrible.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that live action Gargoyles, man. Let's go.
Oh yeah, yeah. Live action.
Darkwing.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Disney is doing live action versions of their back catalog.
True. It's true.
So, you know, we could get a live action Gummy Bears or a live action Wuzzle. Who knows?
Yeah. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. I mean, it's the perfect vehicle for Channing Tatum to get an Oscar. I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He could have the Hawaiian shirt on and shake his little thing, and you know, it'd be great. Who wouldn't want to see that?
Yeah, I mean, we've already got Alvin and the Chipmunks, so we got we got some background for the CGI on the Chipmunk. So
exactly, but the question is, who do we cast as Monterey Jack, and who do we cast as Gadget?
I mean, boy.
I guess the go-to would be Kristen Stewart as Gadget, because or maybe Megan Fox. You know, it depends on what version of wooden acting they want, and then we need Jack Black as Monterey Jack. That I could see that, but I mean, if we're gonna go with the Australian team, we need a Hemsworth, not premium Hemsworth though, discount Hemsworth.
Yeah, like 3 Hemsworths down on the list.
Yeah. The second cousin 3 times removed Hemsworth.
It's just like not even actually related, but has the name.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Hemsworth. Yeah,
the adopted Hemsworth, who looks nothing like the rest of them, but is still you know has the brand.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. I think since we're still floating around the comics thing, did you see the trailer? You probably have seen the trailer for Hawkeye.
I have not.
It looks like fun.
Interesting.
That's the thing I like with the Disney Plus shows with Marvel. They may not be sometimes the best, but they're all different in some way.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really enjoy about the fact, like I don't know if it's like COVID related or if it's just because streaming, but it's just like all the stuff coming to streaming services is really nice for me. It really helps with my social anxiety. The less I got to go out in public, so I can appreciate things coming like direct to stream. Even if I got to pay the same price that I would to go out, I'd rather be at home with like no pants on watching it than out in the movie theater. So yeah, I can respect that for sure.
Well, it's like the kids' movies, right? If I take my kids to a movie, I'm spending more for tickets, food, pain than I would be just to do the one price for the movie and then watch it. Like they can watch it like 5 times before the rental expired. So it makes more sense.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, but now things are starting to open up again. We're seeing less movies are going to get that day one digital release, which is sad.
Yeah. I think I don't really know why. Like I feel like you're getting better value even as a production company or whatever else. I mean, you don't have the partnership with the theater per se.
I can tell you why. It's because the streaming service gets the largest cut of the money, and they aren't writing contracts with streaming in mind.
Ah, okay.
So, like contracts between studios and, you know, filmmakers are based on theater performance.
Yes.
And some after sales with DVDs and stuff. They're not doing it with day one release streaming in mind yet.
Okay.
Now, if they start pushing for that, and they start getting a real slice of the streaming profits, then you'll see more catch for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why for some companies it took time for like Microsoft to allow games on Steam, because they needed to work out how much of the money they would get to satisfy them before they would list their games on Steam, because they already had their own platform for digital delivery. It sucked. It still sucks, but they got the majority of the profit, whereas, Steam has to get a little cut. And yeah, that's why Scarlett Johansson was pissed about Black Widow, because she didn't have a contract that gave her a real slice of the stream pie.
Gotcha.
Which, I mean, that's Disney.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's not too much different than, you think about, like, pay-per-view sales for athletic events or whatever. There are lots of things built into the contract there where people get a cut of, if they're a big enough star and they're in, like, the main event, if it's like a fighting, if it's like MMA, they get a cut of the, $1 for every pay-per-view sale or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. So contracts have to be rewritten with the new technology in mind. But that's going to be a process, because it has to go through unions and,
Yay.
you got to get all the parties to agree, and it's a headache that needs to be hammered out and needs to be worked on, and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
So once that happens and we get more digital day one releases, I'm there for it.
Oh, 100%.
I could live my entire life without having to go to a theater again.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Let me watch my movies naked with a beer in hand and nobody else's fucking kids to deal with.
Yeah,
I'm good.
And my chair is sticky is because I made it sticky, okay?
That's right.
Exactly.
I don't have to worry about other people's goo on my seat. It's just my own, and that's the way I like it. I don't need other flavors of dry cabbage on my furniture. I think this is a good place to end the podcast.
Absolutely.
Because we've been going for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So thank you, my friend, for joining me.
Absolutely.
Do the thing. It's been a blast. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, definitely.
For all you lovely people in chat, I'm going to hit the BRB and
Call an Amber Lamp.
get stretch, and then I'm going to jump over, and we're jumping into 7 Days to Die. And that's a clip.
Fuck me. Love it. Bugs.
So yeah, if you want to stay, I appreciate it. If not, have good evenings. I'm gonna stretch and then get into some zombies with Matt and the gang. So thank you, Tyr. I will see you. When do you stream next? Tomorrow, yes?
Yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow, 11 CST. We are live with Marbles like we do every Sunday.
Hold on, I haven't swallowed it yet. I'm still chewing
Excellent.
this fucking thing.
Well then, it's been a pleasure, my friend. And I will see everybody who's still here in a little bit.